Sure, we're recording, we're good.
Call to order the March 5th, 2026 special board meeting of the Santa Rosa City Schools Board of Trustees. We are on item B, or item A, 1, public comment on closed session agenda items. Is there any public comment?
There is no public comment.
All right, we will be recessing to closed session for item B1, conference with labor negotiator Dr. Vicki Zanz, in reference to organization Santa Rosa Teachers Association, CSEA Santa Rosa 75, and Teamsters Union 665. Recess to closed session.
About 5:40.
5:40 p.m. We're going to go to the Pledge of Allegiance and then stay standing for the territorial land acknowledgement presented by Dr. Zanz. And the flag is in the back for I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I acknowledge that Santa Rosa City Schools is on the traditional territory and homelands of the Pomo people, traditional territory and homelands of the Coast Miwok people, and honor with gratitude the land itself and the people who have stewarded it throughout the generations. This land acknowledgement calls us to commit to continuing to learn how to be better stewards of the land we inhabit. By offering this land acknowledgement, we affirm Indigenous sovereignty and will work to hold Santa Rosa City Schools more accountable to the needs of the American Indian and Indigenous peoples. Thank you.
All right. We'll move to reports of actions taken in closed session. There were no actions taken in closed session. This is a special meeting. Our focus for today's meeting is on the facilities master plan study session. So just so that we set an expectation on the between a study session and an action item. We're here to study, receive the information, respond, and provide feedback. We won't be making any decisions tonight. And as such, for a special meeting like this, the comments we receive in public comment are only focused on the item before us. So we're going to move to open public comment on agenda items.
So I'm going to call the 3 cards that I have. If you want to just kind of stand over here, we don't have a microphone or anything. Is it 1 minute, President Cassidy?
Oh, no, we'll do 3.
Okay.
Well, how many do you have?
I only have 3 comments, but I didn't download 3-minute.
That's okay. I got a clock
Can
here.
someone do the timer? That, yeah, it's fine. And you'll just maybe let us know like how quicker.
Yeah.
The first speaker is Rob Chandler.
How's it going? I'm Rob Chandler. I'm actually on the 7-Eleven committee, and I think maybe we've been presented some of the same information. I'm here tonight to talk a little bit about the new district office and some issues I see with it. In the 7-Eleven committee, they outlined $500 million to $1 billion of needs for the district. Of that, $47 million for the district office itself. I see this as a big problem. You know, first off, it was approved in 2023. Oftentimes, these are approved in June or July when teachers aren't present. I would just be aware of that moving forward. Lots of things, many things have changed since then, since 2023, and the needs have changed. Now we have a 7 through 12 program. Campuses are running differently. You have these new campus needs and these old campus needs. It's been brought up before, like, why do we need the project? And people are saying, well, to retrofit an old facility, it's going to cost so much per square foot. I would say, well, what does it have to cost anything per square foot? All you need to do your job is a chair, a desk, and a computer. No renovation, in my opinion, is needed. If it's good enough for the kids, it should be good enough for them. Bond CNG, and I have them printed out. I think you should take some time and actually read them. A bond is a pact with the voters, right? And you have to follow the bond. And I believe the district office is outside the scope of the bond. And that should be brought to the attention of the state of California. I think our biggest asset in our district is future approval of bonds. You know, we have one for $500 million. If you don't have the trust of the community, you have nothing, and your biggest asset is gone. Me, myself, any parcel tax, property tax, I'm gonna vote against it. I'm gonna encourage everybody I know to vote against it. I think if you wanna build a district office, you need a special bond where it's actually itemized. But I think this is well outside the scope of C and G. We have scope facilities, we have campuses that have available space that can be used after school. The only thing they're looking at to justify off that bond is job training facilities, okay? 15 years at the district, I've never been to a job training at any of the district facilities. Training facilities. The bond is for schools, and if you read it, you'll see the list. Everything on here says it's for schools. Thank you.
Next speaker is Jay Higgins.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen.
Hello.
Hello. For those that don't know me, my name's Jay Higgins. I'm a longtime teacher at Marine Creole High School. I teach phys ed. I'm the department chair. And I'm also the head football coach. And I've held that position since 2001. I enjoyed a facility master plan meeting that we had at Marine Creole in our library with Mr. Jobson and your crew. It was a good discussion. I'm here this evening just because I was reviewing the presentation that is attached to the agenda. There's a couple of details that I just felt compelled to come over and clarify, if I may. With respect to the culinary CTE lab and our current weight room, there was discussion at the beginning about training. And after some further discussion, we determined that we were going to leave them in the same locations that they currently are. And at the very end of our meeting, we floated the idea of a new facility down on what is our blacktop area now. On the diagram, it shows that new facility simply as second gymnasium. And I know perhaps it's just a matter of semantics. Some people, when they say gymnasium or gym, they're talking about a weight room. And other people are talking about a basketball court. And, you know, to me, I believe I said that I'd be more than happy to vacate our current location weight room if we had at least equal size, if not bigger, down on that blacktop area. And my vision for that would be an athletic performance center that would benefit all physical education classes in both high school and middle school in the future, if that happens, as well as all athletics for both high school and middle school in the future, if that happens. I've taken the liberty to print off a copy of a design that I made a long time ago. I am certainly no architect. I'm not trying to get a job with you yet. I've got a few more years until retirement, but that's why I'm here. Yes, sir.
Just 1 minute.
Oh,
Yeah, 1 minute left.
I'm getting the hook.
Not yet.
Okay, I got a minute. Okay. That's really all I need to say. If you do have any questions, I want to offer my ear and my willingness to communicate at any time. I'm not trying to complicate things. I've always found it really helpful whenever somebody from offsite comes onto our campus to try to do some work, to at least just offer some local knowledge. And if I can help, I would be more than happy to. Okay, thank you, sir. I'll take it. I've contacted those.
Next speaker is Matthew Mentz.
Hi trustees, I'm Matt Minch from Steel Lane, and it's good to see you all again. I'm here to talk about the closure of Steel Lane and how it will be a costly problem that will only add to our deficit. The research doesn't support that school closures are as effective way to save money when personnel is your greatest expense. It just doesn't support it. Has district shared all the numbers for you? And can you ask the following questions? Have they given you a price tag on busing 422 students to 6 separate sites? My own students will go to 6 separate sites, or they'll go back to their original home district. They have predicted loss. Have they given you numbers for a predicted ADA loss for the next wave of families flee our overcrowded schools? We plan to spend 7 million to refurbish used portables, and we rent these. Any renovations at Steel Lane won't top 300,000 or 200,000. So it's a smarter idea to keep them at Steel. Does closing Steel Lane square up with our district's pledge of equity? Steel Lane is 81% Hispanic American and 72% low SES. Closing Steel Lane will pile another layer of injustice upon our underserved populations. Why are elementary schools closed when secondaries merely move sites? What percentage of our small elementary districts do the trustees actually overlap with? I want you to reflect on that. It's not much, and some of you, it's zero, and you speak for our small elementary district in this larger district. There's a disturbing pattern of taking from the powerless to give to the powerful. Are you pleased to be a part of that, or will you do something different? It really is punching down. Elementary, it's just take, and we're like the bank account for the wider district, and it's not fair. And I'm gotta speak for my kids in my district. I live near my school, and those kids need the same elementary education as the other elementary districts around, and I think it's very important. So thank you for listening.
There are no other cards.
All right. President Castle, could you confirm that the Steel Lane issue will be on the March 25th agenda?
You'll be on the March 11th.
March 11th, okay.
All right. That, public comment, we'll move to item E1, facilities master plan Zoom session.
All right. Thank you.
You know, it's a
He's having a
Director Oden to start us off. Resolve the technology.
Thank you, President Cast, Interim Superintendent August, members of the board. Thanks for having us tonight. This is something we talked about not that long ago, and I'm glad to see that we're all here today to discuss the facilities master plan update. Tonight, we're going to kind of run this like we've done for the sites as a site committee. Those site committees at school sites, we have had 1 to 2 meetings at each site. And the site committee is typically made up of parents, students, teachers, staff, community members, those that wanted to come and show up and give their input. So we're going to ask the same of you tonight. We're going to present what we've heard from the sites direct, and kind of Aaron with QKA, our master planner here, has put together some slides you've seen on some of the maps of what has come out of that for your opinion. We've also had meetings with 7th and 8th grade kiddos at Montgomery and Santa Rosa to try to get a sense from them on what they think that junior, senior high schools might need in the future, so that we can incorporate that as well into this plan. And we have a community survey we're working on right now that will be going out to all the on Parent Square throughout the district, so by site. So if you're part of a certain school, you'll get a survey out based upon the site plan, so we can get even more community feedback. Because we find that people are having some meeting fatigue. We're not getting nearly as much people attending our meetings as had in the past. I think there's just a lot going on right now. So we're trying to reach out as much as possible to try to get as much information as we can to incorporate it. So for the overview of this tonight, we have 2 parts. We have the master plan itself, and then we have the implementation plan. So we'll start with the master plan. We'll kind of do an overview of what the sites got. And maybe we do a little Q&A on that. There's some indicators of quality that Aaron's gonna wanna run through with you and get your input on. We'll go through Measure G sites, all the elementary sites and kind of what their maps look like, and then maybe we'll do a Q&A after that. And then we'll go through Measure C sites, the high school sites, and kind of talk about those and see what kind of Q&A, if that works for you guys. Right, so we can just kind of keep things moving, but also get your input. So I'll turn it over to Aaron Jobson from Quattraki Quag Architects.
All right, thank you guys for having us, and my colleague Chris is online, so he can take notes with a full computer set up, so that's a little bit easier. But yeah, so we're gonna kind of start as Eric said with the kind of intro slides that we use at every meeting. And we really start by talking about what master planning means. And our goal here is to really take a pretty high level view of each of your facilities to look at what the needs are, what projects we can identify to serve those needs, have some good discussion like you saw a little bit of today, back and forth, and figure out where the best and how the best way to accommodate those needs is. For each of those, really just try to identify an overall scope of work and budget. So we really want to know for a new building, how big is the building, where does it go on the site? And then from that, we can develop kind of a rough order of magnitude budget to start with. And then the other thing we really want to get is to give you all some information about how important or impactful that project will be to the educational experience on each campus. And that's kind of where we stop from a modernization standpoint. But one of the things we always like to make sure we reinforce is that that's not where the input stops for a particular project. When you all as the board approve a project to go forward, then we come back and have a quick kind of what we usually call programming. So if we're identifying a new athletic performance center, then we want to sit down and figure out exactly how many squat racks do we need, exactly how many of each of those things, and kind of confirm that the assumptions we made initially still fit, and get into much more detail so we know where to put the outlets and where windows should go and things like that. And then we'll move into design, where we figure out exactly how we're going to build all of that. And all the way through that process, we continue to get input from the stakeholders, from the school sites, have opportunities for whoever's involved in that project to provide input. And we do that all the way through the process down to when we're picking the colors for things. But we don't get into any of that now. So part of this is just to make sure we're kind of keeping the conversation at the high level, but letting people know that the teams will be back to talk about things in the future when those projects move forward. We also want to talk about the relationship between the master plan and the implementation plan. So a facilities master plan is by design an aspirational document. We're trying to identify where we'd like the facilities to be over the next 10 to 20 years. We know that we're not going to be able to get them there in any one bond measure, but we want to have that long-term view so we know each step is sort of building towards that larger goal. And then from the projects we identify in the master plan, then the goal of the implementation plan is to figure out which of those projects are the right ones to do now. And we try to do that based on which are going to have the highest impact on the educational environment. There are also obviously practical concerns that go with that, maintaining the infrastructure, things like that are part of those decision making too. So our process now, master plan is always intended to be a living document that gets updated periodically. Proposition 2, the state facilities bond now requires that those be updated every 5 years to qualify for funding. But generally, we recommend that be updated every 5 to 10 years, or as things change. And a lot has changed, so we're back early. Essentially, is what we're looking at. And our goal in this process is really just to take the 2023 facilities master plan and update and adjust it where conditions have changed. And that's kind of what we're looking at doing for the 2026 update. So that's what we've been focused on. So you'll see as we go through, there are a few schools where not much has changed. And so it's basically the same as it was in 2023 because the context hasn't changed that much. Do you have a question?
I do.
Go ahead.
So since this is a facilities master plan is kind of a requirement so that we can use the dollars, why then is it so expensive?
So part of that, is.
I mean, I know like you guys are people and you need pay, but.
Yeah, that is what you're paying for, is for us to go out and have all these conversations with all of the schools and do the work behind the scenes to support that. It also includes a professional cost estimator that's looking at all these projects and putting together a report for the cost for those and then updating that as we revise the projects.
But a lot of that is our boots on the ground going out and doing these meetings. And that community engagement takes work. And it takes time, and that's the bulk of what the fee for master planning is really doing that. And we've set up this project where we're doing it on a time and materials basis, so you only pay for exactly the amount of time that we spend on the project and nothing more.
Do you know if, since it's a requirement of, like, the state, for instance, has thought about providing grants for such things?
That would be great, I would know that.
I'll let him know.
One of the favorite phrases of the folks that we work with that advocate on behalf of school districts is unfunded mandate. And I'm sure it's one of Lisa's favorite phrases also.
Yes.
So
Thank you.
yes, no, unfortunately, they do not. We are kind of adapting our process a little bit to meet the state requirements. There's as you would expect, there's a whole document that they put out about exactly what those requirements are. We do go above and beyond that a little bit, and most of that is in the community engagement, because that's not technically required. You guys, we could just make a plan and you could approve it and it'll meet the requirements, but obviously that's not good practice, especially when there's been as much change as there has been in the district in the last 3 years.
Thank
A
you.
quick question on the scope of that, the previous slide had it for the bond implementation plan, but this work is also about using the bond funds to capture other state funds, grants.
Yeah.
So it's not just about spending the bond funds, it's about having the plan and being able to capture.
Yeah. The bulk of that funding is from the bond, but as additional funding is available from the Office of Public School Construction, the state bond is the primary one. Then those additional, that funds more projects to come from that master plan into that implementation plan.
And so like one thing, when we're putting this together, should we dispose of any of the properties that our 7-Eleven committee is looking at? This would lay the groundwork for prioritization of using any funds we get from that type of a process as well.
Also, yes, absolutely. Okay. So the last piece that we wanted to talk about kind of in this intro thing is, one of the things that we do that you'll remember from 2023 is we score each project in these 6 categories to help provide more quantitative information to the board to make decisions about which projects we prioritize. The unfortunate reality is that we will end up with some multiple of need that you have funding. And it will always be hard to figure out which are the projects to fund. And so we're trying to provide as much information for that as possible. So these are the 6 indicators that we developed and use these, like I said, in the 2023 master plan. And this is just copied from the introduction to that plan. And so typically what we would do is ask you all, especially for input on the second column there, the weighting. So we give each category a score from 1 to 10 and then multiply it by that weighting to come up with the total score. And that's really an opportunity to kind of provide input on which of these factors is more or less important relative to each other. They're all obviously important, or they wouldn't be part of this rubric, if you will. Yeah.
Is this matrix something your firm came up with, or is this statewide, or?
So this is something that it's something that our firm came up with. It's something that I learned about and the series of courses I took a few years ago about facilities planning from a national organization, and then we've sort of implemented here. We have used this same process with a number of other districts that we do facilities master planning to. And then we'll have this conversation about the weighting, usually each time, and each district has weighted them a little bit differently. If we wanted to change or eliminate one or change the definition, definitely do that too. It's not required by the state, but we found it to be, and boards, the previous boards here and other districts have found it to be a useful tool.
I like the tool. I think the one thing that's happened since 2023 and now is we've now adopted strategic priorities. And so I'd appreciate before it comes back looking at our 5 strategic priorities and making sure they're all embedded here. I see 2 places where academics is there, but I don't necessarily see enrichment and athletic and arts programs specified. And similarly, making sure that we have the concept of our student-centered staff priority. I see the safety security, but I think we have those priorities, so we should see them adopted and put into any type of metrics like this.
Sure, absolutely.
Why is code compliance weighted as a 1? Like, what's the thought process behind that?
Oh, sorry. I'll let them say what I just said.
Well, yeah, well,
Aaron, do you remember why it was weighted
I mean,
for one initially?
I think it's because you don't have a lot of problems with code compliance.
Yes.
There are always some problems with, some challenges with accessibility. But, in the scale of what we're talking about, those are relatively minor. But we don't have like whole buildings that aren't approved or, issues like that. So it's really reflective of kind of the scale of the problem there. I think it's important to kind of highlight where that applies, but it didn't seem as important as educational programs or and learning environment.
And we also catch code compliance in all of our projects, right? We're required to, so those kind of get caught up
That was
anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
Right, so.
They get dealt with incrementally as we have done projects at all of the schools. Even the roofing projects we do, we have to do accessibility updates.
So it's a lower priority on the weighting to help with the scoring.
The other question, oh, go ahead.
No, go for.
The other question I had, was something that we're seeing in the secondary, for instance, well, and in elementary, when we're putting more kids on campuses, like where does, that seems like it would fall everywhere, right? Like making sure that we have buildings for students. But to me, that looks like supports ed programs, quality learning environment, community support, maintenance and operation, and safety and security altogether.
Exactly. And so on the past master plan, and this is actually just a slide from the board presentation from now, that's why the dates are not quite right. From the last time we did this, but those projects where we're like replacing portables with new TK classrooms were the highest rated projects. They ended up at like 109 out of 120. Because they're important in all of these things.
Oh, I
And
see.
that we're looking at, that's a project that's going to take that learning environment from a 25-year-old portable classroom to a new classroom, right? So that's a huge impact on the quality of the learning environments, on how we support the educational programs, on maintenance and operations, right? Because it's going to be a lot easier to maintain that permanent building. So that's a great example of kind of how this is applied.
Thank
He answered my question with portables.
So any other questions about this or any input beyond what you said about aligning with the strategic priorities, which makes sense, but is there anything else you see in here that you think maybe should be reevaluated in terms of evaluating?
Things like there needs, just from what I've seen and from attending one of the meetings and having come up a couple years ago too. It seems like there would need to be something that's weighted for like a need other than something that would be beneficial to these things, but like an absolute need.
Yeah.
To me, that goes in code compliance, but I don't know where.
So I think the way I would think about that is, if something's an absolute need, then the score that we give it is gonna be a 10. If it's just something that would be nice to have, but it's not a need, then the score we give it in that category might be a 7. So that's kind of how we would reflect that in each of the categories. So the scenario I described with the portable classroom replacement, right? Like that gets pretty close to 10 and a lot of those, and then multiply those. If it was a new building to replace, a building that's only 20 years old and not in bad shape, then it would maybe only be a 6 in those categories. Because it's not as gonna have as big of an impact on the educational experience. Great. If there are any other questions or thoughts about this later, please let us know. But if that looks good, then we're planning to use the same weighting that we used before, and we'll look at kind of aligning the language and making sure that it reflects the strategic priorities. Okay. Sorry. Okay, so if there are no other questions about kind of the process and introduction, then we can kind of jump into the individual school sites. So what we did here is we just took the cover sheet and the main plan from each of the sections. So we could kind of do a high level overview, kind of presentation of what we proposed at each school. But if you have additional questions and want to dig into more detail, I have the full document that we can swipe over to and look at it for you.
And I'd also like to preface it with, we will be updating all the pictures because a lot of the schools are painted. I think Aaron just grabbed old pictures from what he had, so we'll update all these before the final draft on the newer painted.
We can go around and
sites.
take some
And current
pictures.
enrollments too.
Yes, I think the enrollments are based on the most recent information that we had from Emmanuel. And I think the 2025-26 enrollments are, yeah, and that needs to be updated, so it doesn't say 22, 23. But like some of that stuff, there's a lot of little things that we have to go through and do our kind of QC review on and make sure that we catch. But the enrollment should reflect what Emmanuel gave us about the census day count for 2025. That's the intent, and we'll double check that. So,
And
yes,
Just real quick, while we're talking about the enrollment piece, if we need clarification from Emmanuel on some of the way that because this was a question that came from the board, from a few people. Is that the study that we had done in 2022-23, that information was what was the basis for what the SCO provided study used as kind of their baseline, and they did some additional information. That did not include many of the changes that the district made. At the time, the information from the SCO provided study didn't include decisions that had been made or things that had changed. And then Emmanuel took both of those as well as the current year data and looked at averages and percentages, trying to project based on this current year. Like an example would be Comstock, the split of the students, about 65% based on address will be going to Pioneer next year versus about 35% of those students would be going to Elsie Allen. And so he extrapolated that out. It does not account though for, say, the local students that would have gone to CCLA to, Elsie, what that looks like. So there will be, that's just an example of there's kind of some unknowns right now that we're going to have to, as we see what actual enrollment trends end up being, that's when we'll be updating that information. But that's the best data that we have at this time, was looking at all of those different pieces. So he can hop online if we need him to explain a little bit more as we go through it.
This shows enrollment going up 30 and 35, and for sure all the reports we saw had it going down.
Depends on the site. So overall may do one thing while you have particular sites that shift in a different way.
And then planned capacity being, in most of them, planned capacity is significantly higher than what we're expecting the enrollment to be at any given time.
So I think those are the questions that are gonna lead us into the broader strategy conversation. So why don't we receive the information on each site? And we can we're gonna go, which one is the elementary measure? G. We're gonna do measure G first, for the grammar schools. And then we'll have a discussion at that point, and then we'll move into the secondary.
Okay.
And I think the capacity stuff will probably make a little more sense as we go through too. But our goal is always to try to get this, make sure to leave a little bit of room between the projected enrollment and the student capacity. But also we're not really looking to like remove permanent buildings and things like that too. So you can see the data here for Lincoln, but if we go into the site plan, what you also see is we're showing removing all the portable classrooms. We're showing, to get quick orientation, the yellow, we call light modernization. So that is really kind of, we always kind of describe it as sort of fixing what's worn out. Most of the schools have already had the roofing and HVAC replaced, so it doesn't need to include that anymore. So now it's really looking at primarily like classroom, interiors, finishes and improving those kind of things. The orange is all of that plus some reconfiguration of that space too. So where we need to move walls or more extensive modernization to change the use, then that's where it goes from sort of yellow to orange. And then blue is new buildings, and then the teal are new shade structures. You'll see also there are some buildings that are shown as white, and those are ones that are either under construction or very recently built, so that we don't need to worry about modernizing them.
Can you tell where like a portable's been removed or?
You'd have to compare it to the previous page in the report that shows the existing plan. So in the document, in the full document, there's also a drawing of the existing layout of the site, and then it'll show the portables on there, and so you could kind of compare those two. we could show like dash lines for where the portables were, but often they overlap with new stuff and it gets really complicated and hard to read.
Is that in the one that, is that in the posted thing or no?
Is that in the what?
Posted, that's not on the, that's not attached. to the-
No, no.
Where is it located?
You
Like, I
can see
wanted to
that
go
all
find
the site maps are on the 2023 master plan online.
Perfect.
Yeah.
That's right.
And you can see that.
And you can see there's.
And it'll be in the final draft. So you see here, what we're showing at Lincoln is really modernizing all the existing, I'm gonna zoom in a little bit. Modernizing all the existing buildings, but then also constructing new TK kinder buildings, because there's really only one classroom on this campus that meets those standards. For a TK kinder classroom, the state CDE Title V standards, having a little bit larger classroom and a dedicated restroom and some prep area as well. So it really makes more sense, especially with the buildings on this campus, to just build those as new buildings than try to reconfigure existing buildings into those types of classrooms. So we showed 4 of those here for a total of 5 TK and kinder classrooms clustered around a shared play area with a little shaded structure. And then we showed modernizing the rest of the existing buildings. One of the things, we showed some additional restrooms on this site because that was a need and a concern of the staff on this school site as well. We also had good conversations with the special education department about what their needs are for each campus as well. So you'll see on here, we have 2 RSP classrooms at Lincoln and Lehman. These kind of support spaces between the classrooms work really well for that. And then we also have a sensory room that's shown for the kind of general student population. And then there is an office and sensory space for the special ed cluster on this campus as well.
How does that work when we just made more decisions about changing things?
So if this is what, this is based on the information that John Fisher told us a month or 2 ago. So if that changes, then we'll update it before, then we'll update it for the final draft. And this is why this is a draft, right?
And a living document as well, right? So.
It's growing legs, walking away.
Yeah.
Before we can get to it.
We already gated here, right? This black gate means that it's already done.
Yeah, the black means it's either existing or in process, meaning that it's already been funded and approved, so we don't need to plan to spend more money on it on the master plan. It may not actually be constructed yet.
And
Yeah, and then the fences that aren't yet that are still need to be addressed will show up as red, but I don't think they're already on this side.
And just curious, when that was done, I think that blocked off the playground that was part of the city property, right?
Correct.
So right now they don't have a playground at all.
It's not constructed yet. We have the plans for it, but that is not constructed yet.
And yeah, that'll be coming this summer, and there will be the gates there to let the kiddos in and out of that play structure until the new play structure, which is shown up just off screen there, be built. Yeah.
So a couple other things we should show on this site is doing some pretty extensive site improvements around the back of this site to create a flat soccer field. So that they have an actual field and the new playground within the fence perimeter of the school site. Right now, they rely, that's all just kind of a hill back here, and they rely on the city park, but we're trying to create security and separation between those two. And then the last kind of major piece here is a new NPR. So one of the things we looked at looking at the educational facility guidelines is kind of setting a template for what size NPR we want to have on every elementary school. We kind of used Monroe's NPR as kind of a template because that works pretty well. We want to make it a little bit bigger so that the basketball court fits in there a little bit bigger and there's a little bit room around the edge. I think what the principal said there, make it like 5 feet bigger on either side would be perfect. So that's kind of what we scaled that box to be. Excuse me, and also include a kitchen as well. And so we're planning each elementary school to have that same level of NPR, and this one at Lincoln does not, and so we're showing in the plan a new NPR in the back, and then turning the existing NPR into some expanded administration space and a PE classroom.
Is the shaded area next to the NPR? I'm just wondering about the thinking behind that. Is that this kids will do stuff in the NPR and then come out there, or why does it?
Yeah, it's and also for like a covered lunch area too. If this is where the kitchen's gonna be and they're gonna get food, then having some outdoor seating area is helpful for that too.
Wait,
Sorry, if you're gonna have a PE classroom, what about a music classroom, or will they share?
So that can share, there is also a flex classroom that I don't see labeled on here that we need to show as well. So either that's one of the existing classrooms that we're not loading with students so that it can be used for music and other support programs, or it's supposed to be part of the multi-use building that just didn't show it correctly. So that's something that we'll need to make sure, but that's one of the other things we're trying to plan for every elementary school site is those two flexible spaces for PE and we kind of a music / flex room that can be used for those enrichment programs. And we don't count in the capacity analysis because when second graders are in the art classroom, there's not other kids in the second grade classroom, right? It's kind of one or the other. So we kind of don't count those classrooms in the capacity analysis.
Are any of the buildings proposed to be maintained portables, or does this eliminate all of this?
Eliminates all portables.
Eliminates all portables. And that's the case across the district. That's the goal here. One of the main goals, as it has been, throughout the process of doing an update in this master plan, is to make sure we replace portables, but only to the extent that we really need them because we can't afford to build extra classrooms.
I think to the broader point, what I was asking is our current and projected enrollment, there wouldn't be a reason we don't necessarily need to replace portables as much as we can actually discontinue the use of it.
Correct.
Yeah, we're looking to only replace new buildings where, to the extent we actually need them, or in this case, like a TK size, because the need is there for the size. But our goal is to, as a district, is to remove all portables and put back permanent structures as we need that capacity.
Yeah. And this elementary school has a bigger gap between the projected enrollment and the capacity, but that's really just the nature of the permanent facilities that are here already and the need to create PK classrooms. But it still means we want to eliminate all of them.
Was there any special funding for TKs?
First one was just there.
There
Okay.
was, I'm not sure.
Right.
He was asking about the TK funding and the availability of that, which I have to say we can get you an update on that. I'm
Yeah,
not
I think you're
sure.
probably better asking King about that.
Yeah.
I know there is a program and it's funded in rounds and I don't know what the current status is.
They monitor for us and
Yeah, for sure.
alert us when there are things that we're qualifying for on those applications. That would be probably included in our overall.
I think one of the big hurdles for that was full day kinder was the kicker, right?
That's
And
what it
so
was for us.
we don't do full day kinder. So it's a
Qualify for funding, yeah. If we were to expand.
And that funding is pretty much exhausting right now. They're looking at adding more money into it, but we're currently no funding left.
We are eligible for new construction funding, but it is separate from the TK pots that were set aside by the state.
I'm gonna move on to the next school because Kathy told me I have to pick up the page. So you can see here at Helen Lehman, the enrollment and the capacity is sort of much closer together. So we're looking at a projected enrollment in the low 500s and a planned capacity of 588.
Wait, so this slide says the students in 25-26 school year?
Yes.
But the Abraham Lincoln was 22-23. So
just a
that,
mistake. It was a draft. They gotta go through and finalize.
Yeah, I think we just need to update the text of the year.
well, that's what I'm saying, the first one, the
Yeah.
population was correct.
I believe so, yes, but we'll double check. So at Lehman, as I'm sure most of you know, it's very similar construction and type of building. So what we can see here is we have 6 TK classrooms that are currently under construction in the back. So that's kind of shown in white here and with things kind of faded out a little bit to show that as kind of in process. And we are modernizing the 3 permanent kind of original classroom buildings here, very similar to what you just saw at Lincoln. Kind of very similar also with the administration and the PE classroom and expanding the office at the front. In this case, because we have the new TK Kinder classrooms at the back, what we're actually showing is demolishing the one old Kinder classroom at the front and building the new NPR here at the front of the school. which is a great suggestion by one of the teachers attending the meeting. And so that will kind of put the NPR right at the front. It's also one of the things that gets really challenging on this side is we're just running out of space. Is that there's more students on this side and less area than Lincoln, for example. So we show the new NPR here, and then a new 2-story classroom building here where the existing portables are, to get enough classrooms to meet that projected enrollment. And then the modernized library and then a PE classroom here. So we do have to put kind of 4 classrooms on the 2nd story to get enough rooms on this site to meet that projected enrollment. One of the things that factors into that across all the sites too is, the conversation we had about special ed. We are planning for each school site to have a cluster of special ed classrooms to serve one of the specialized programs and give the district long-term flexibility to put those programs where they make sense. But they have a lot of the same physical requirements. So we can kind of have one space, one cluster of classrooms in that sensory and office support space at each campus. And then the district can make the right decision, every year, every 5 years, whatever, about how those are configured, but it won't be limited by the facilities, which in many cases it is now. I think the only other thing probably to note here is that one of the things that we did also talk about is kind of adding a little bit more staff parking at the front here. We have a restriction on this site in that there is a PG&E easement, which is this dash line that you see here that runs along this side of the site. So we can't put any permanent infrastructure that they can't drive a truck through in that easement.
The white box in the middle?
Yeah, that's a shade structure that's part of the TK.
It's part of the
classroom
summer project. It's going in it's going in this summer, yeah.
I was like, I was there today,
TK project.
and I hope that wasn't the shade structure.
No,
they
not there yet.
Painting all over the concrete where they're trying to lay it out and get ready for it.
Moving on.
Yep. Sorry, I'm gonna drink. The Hidden Valley is the next school. You can see here kind of a similar ratio of planned student capacity to projected enrollment. The projected enrollment is projected to go up here, and has gone up quite a bit from where it was a few years ago. So this is a big change from like the 2023 plan. So you can see that plan here. So one of the major challenges on this site is currently the admin is in this building, which is buried into the middle of the site and really does not facilitate the access control and secure perimeter that we're trying to create for safety and security at each site, which is a huge challenge at this site. So one of the main proposed improvement here is actually to add a new building out here, which would be a 2-story building that would have administration on the ground floor and student restrooms, and then have 4 classrooms on the 2nd floor and some support spaces. Obviously would have stairs and elevators too. And then most of the other buildings are modernized in the yellow, as you can see. The existing, what they call the hall is right here. And that would be converted into PE and those music flex classrooms right at the middle of the campus. And the square footage worked well for that. And they're pretty high volume spaces, so they should work pretty well for that. And then the existing admin is proposed to be converted into those special education support spaces. And then the one other thing on this site is replacing the very old and falling apart, we call it kind of like DHH buildings that are in here with 3 additional TK Kinder.
Where's DHH going?
It stays on the site. It just has to go into a different room. Yeah.
That's just how they refer to them.
Don't take it.
It is definitely not our job to decide where programs go. So
Are you sure you don't want that job?
I am, yes. That's not sure. So that's kind of where we're at with Hidden Valley. There.
You can get them at the end of Measure G.
Yeah, okay, that's right.
Real quick on Hidden Valley, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
For the bathrooms, I don't see the bathrooms marked.
Let me zoom in a little bit. So right now we're proposing new restrooms here, but there are also restrooms in this little kind of cluster in
Both
each of the
sides,
classroom
yeah.
buildings as well here and here. They're just kind of too small for us to label at this scale.
No bathrooms for those elementaries.
And there's 2
They can hold it.
music areas, right?
Yeah, there's a PE classroom here and a music/flex classroom, and again, that's what we're trying to plan for each elementary school.
And the top daycare music reading is also a music area.
Yeah, that's kind of a unique space that they use to support a bunch of different programs too. This campus has a couple of unique spaces. It's also going to be one of your larger elementary schools in student population. So we thought kind of an extra space would probably be helpful here too. And given that they have that already, it makes sense to keep it. So moving on to Burbank. So Burbank currently has 459 students this year, and that's actually shown to kind of go up and down a little bit, but in the long term be pretty similar to that. And so we're showing a planned student capacity of 460. So at Burbank, the couple of major projects. One is going to be a reconfiguration of the admin and the front entry to consolidate all the administrative functions into one part of the campus, all the support staff. That's the thing that we see a lot at elementary schools in general, and definitely at your elementary schools, is there are additional programs and support staff than when these schools were developed 60 years ago. And they've just been kind of put wherever there was room for them all over the campus. And we want to bring those together and provide spaces that are dedicated and designed for them. And one of the things that we worked on with the elementary school sites, but also with the district leadership, is kind of what do we need for every elementary school in terms of admin space. So we're planning the same square footage at each elementary school to support those, to have space for the staff and for those support programs. And we know some of that, what programs we have is obviously in flux right now and changing, but we want to make sure the facilities support the programs we want to have over time, even if we might not have funding for all of them next year, which was a conversation we also had many times. As you can probably imagine.
What's the thought process on having the staff eating area in front of the school?
You know, there's kind of a playground out there now that's used for TK,
Right.
and one of the things that we're moving TK to this new building back here, and we thought that might be a use for that space, but that will probably be a fairly low priority item on the list as well. So yeah. So that's where we're at with
portables there right now, right?
This summer, we're putting some temporary portables to allow for that, they're cramped, they're not pictured here, because they're temporary, yeah.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
They're not meant to be permanent.
Is there anything being done? I mean, with this site, you know, there's from like when it rains a lot, it floods a lot out here. Anything to kind of staff?
Yeah.
We've actually done we're working with Caltrans now, because when they put the freeway in, they cut the pipe and just left it, so it floods. So we're working with them right now. Actually, I think Van Pelt had some team out there last week, actually looking with them. So our goal is to get that figured out with one of these projects as an infrastructure need, an issue to solve it soon.
And I think another concern that I've had with this site specifically is just pickup. It's so hectic there.
Yeah.
There's that street over here all the way to the right, and then, well, no parking, but it gets, I don't know, sometimes I worry it's a little dangerous. Any thought being put into that? I'm thinking about this shaded area in the front. Can that somehow be expanded to kind of make pickup easier or something, or safer?
We did talk about that a bit and looked at that, and I think there's a little bit of things that we can do in the existing kind of pickup and drop that loop there to improve that. This area is really too small to be helpful in that, and also too close to the intersection where the city's not gonna let you put like a driveway entrance or anything that close to the intersection. So unfortunately, I don't think there's a lot more we can do here. We did show kind of improving this little kind of extension to the campus over here for staff parking. Kind of right over here in this corner, there's kind of a unused.
Yeah, the district owns that lot there that's in gray, that's right now just weeds, and not because it's way at the back, it's just never been developed, but it could be developed into extra parking for staff, which would allow for TK pick up and drop off in the lot that kind of shows that you have an expanded drop off there on this plan.
And I think, you know, that's what we discussed with the site and kind of decided that's probably as much as we really can do feasibly. And that gives it a similar amount of parking and drop off to really all of your other elementary schools too. So obviously some of them have less, like Proctor doesn't have any of either. But that's pretty typical across your district and frankly across most schools of a similar vintage. It's just always gonna be a struggle. There's no design solution for 300 cars coming in 15 minutes.
Also the buses, like out here on A Street, when the buses arrive, they're gonna block in the road. and
Yeah.
it's hard.
So I think one of the things that can help with that sometimes is just working with the city on striping on the curb for pick up and drop off and things like that, but that's not on your property, so it's kind of outside of the scope of the master plan.
I had a quick question about this one with the new TK Kinder section, basically.
Yeah.
If we've got 23 permanent classrooms and then we've got planned 24, is something there currently that's going away?
There is there is one classroom there currently.
Just the one, like
One
their
portable.
music one, or that was music, that's probably something else.
Yeah, exactly.
So then we're building new classrooms, or is something else going away? Like, that seems like a lot of classrooms if we currently have 23.
Yeah, so we're also taking a few classrooms,
But some are music and flex, right? So they're not counted as classrooms, they're counted as spaces, so they're not counted in that capacity.
we're also taking a couple of spaces that were counted as classrooms in the past, or could be counted as classrooms and creating more admin space out of them.
Yeah, so like that orange is taking away 2 classrooms
Yeah.
that exist now.
Right, that
Um,
makes sense.
And
So
then
that the
another one,
office could be at the front.
there's another one here too.
Yeah.
That's like
That's
the
actually right.
special education space
That
as
makes
So you're
well.
actually losing 4 classrooms in this scenario.
And then their classrooms are their other classrooms are all a little bit wonky, like some of them are smaller space than bigger, right? And like
I think they're
their
all-
main track,
I think it looks a little bit different in size on this drawing, but I think in reality, they're all pretty.
There's one that's a slightly smaller, yes, they used for Boys and Girls Club in the past, and a staff room, I think now.
should remember that coming up, last year in the consolidation stuff,
When you're,
classes, no?
when you're accounting for capacity, the TK classrooms have lower capacity than.
They do, yeah.
So
That's
that's,
they're
so
also
Yes,
so
yeah,
that
yeah.
like for like.
that's
Yeah.
bad, yeah.
That helps,
Yeah,
yeah,
special
thank you.
events as well. Okay, so for Monroe, you can see the numbers there for the capacity analysis. Their enrollment is projected to grow quite a bit, based on Emmanuel's numbers. So we're planning for that and a capacity of 608. So we can see that here. This one more.
Does it
In
say
on a little bit, so you can see the TK kinder buildings that are under construction right now are back here. And you can see modernization of all of the existing space. There's some reconfiguration of the admin that's needed here as well. With those new TK kinder classrooms, we're proposing to turn the old kinder classroom into that flex space. And then adding 2 new buildings to provide those to replace the portables and provide the additional capacity for the long-term enrollment. Here, kind of in the same locations as the existing portables. So this gets to that projected enrollment the capacity needed for the projected enrollment and shows no portable classrooms in this campus. I think there are like 9 on this campus now. So that'll be a big improvement for this for sure.
Can their NPR hold, the projected numbers?
Yeah, that's the one that we kind of used as the template for all the schools. They love it to be a few feet wider, but that's obviously not worth tearing it down for. So that works pretty well for them. They wanted to like make sure the floor got replaced with one that had the lines built into it because they just put them on with blue tape now. But there's enough space for it and it has the basketball hoops and everything. None of your NPRs are big enough to have like all the kids eat lunch in at the same time or anything like that, but that's pretty typical and standard for schools in California too. Where that's why we're providing outdoor lunch structures, and that's why your schools also have multiple lunch periods too.
For the revitalized sports field, can we accurately show the baseball field that San Rosa Americans currently?
Yeah,
Those are over here.
the circle up there.
Well, there's the third one they're doing.
Yeah, it's showing
Oh, okay.
the backstop's there. They just didn't write.
Yeah, we can
didn't do
show
the
the-
whole
we can
time
show
of
the
it.
lines.
We can make, we
Just
put it
before
down.
I get all the phone calls.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, we can show the full outline.
Since they're doing a capital campaign, they could say
Yeah,
that.
And the shade structure is going in this summer.
Is that going in the summer?
Yeah. As part of the TK project, we try to, lump
Okay.
some things in there.
Is the updated playground already done, or is that?
The updated playground is also happening this summer.
Okay,
So we're knocking off quite a few things at this site.
and that's
We
like,
can.
you always say, Eric, that's, Kathy, that's typical, we do. So we'll show the playground and the shade structure as also white and existing in this plan as well.
With the solar panel, thing in Monroe, is that currently, or is that,
That's that blue.
does that mean it's current or planned?
That's current.
That's
That's
existing.
existing.
Okay,
It's gonna be in a parking lot now instead of over the field.
Yeah.
It'll be in the kinder parking lot and the staff lot there.
And we're only showing the existing solar structures
great.
on these plans, we're not showing proposal. I think.
Afraid to go around, okay.
Now you've said that.
At least that should be the intent, it's a draft. Okay, Proctor Terrace. So you can see the numbers there, planning for a long-term capacity
Aaron,
of,
hold on a second. Go
I
ahead.
was going back to the road, did they still have the North Bay Children's Center up there at the top, or no?
It's there, it's planned to get moved to Biella as a preschool facility.
either that or the. We show removing that portable because that program is.
That's okay.
So for Proctor, we're looking at a 2035 enrollment projection of 470. So we have a campus planned capacity of 503. As you all know, the Proctor Terrace is in the Alquist Priolo zone, and the fault study determined that essentially this kind of red shaded region is a no build zone in the future. And that runs through pretty much all of the permanent buildings or all of the existing classroom buildings on the campus. Unfortunately, the buildings it doesn't run through are the ones that were already pretty worn out and undersized. Like their NPR is much smaller than we need it to be. And they have a bunch of portables kind of in this area too that are not in that zone, but also don't want to have permanent facilities. So really what we're showing here is a replacement campus. With the idea that we could build that either all once or in phases and build the new buildings on the field and keep the school operational during that construction and then move the kids into the new buildings and demo the old buildings and build new fields. We've tried to plan this so that could happen in a couple different ways in multiple phases. So that you can replay, there's a admin building here, a single story TK kinder building, kind of similar to what you've seen at some of the other plans for the other schools. There's a 2-story classroom building and a 1-story classroom building to get all of those spaces on the remaining part of this site that we can build on. And we set this up so you could build the admin, the TK, and the 2-story building, move everyone out of all the other classrooms, and then demo the remaining buildings too. And then build the NPR and that. There's trying to think through the potential of how this could be phased, but obviously the details of that would be figured out when we design that project.
We're basically building an entire new school.
Yeah.
Why are we closing Steel Lane? How much money is this?
So we're not revisiting our closures.
No, but I'm just, me understanding money, how much is this?
And we're gonna get to the amounts of the cost of these projects.
Yeah, that we have a thing at the end, we can talk about it, it's not cheap.
To me, that doesn't seem fiscally responsible, building an entire school.
I don't have another school over there.
So we have it's a multi-year plan and there's no other school on this side of town, in this area. And as we're walking through the ability to use, especially infill spaces like this, there's lots of earthquake fault lines on all 3 of our campuses on this side of town. And so of the 3 campuses that were there that had earthquake impacts, this is the one that had the fewest earthquake impacts and the most potential to build. So if we looked at Brook Hill, Doyle, and here, of those 3, this was really the only site that was buildable.
Yeah, no, that's exactly how I would say it. The other two.
It's insane to me. And cause it's not like we have unlimited bond money.
Well,
have
that's
to
the
have a
part of the
school there,
conversation we're
No,
gonna,
and this doesn't have to happen right now, as you probably remember from previous presentations, the restrictions are on future construction, they're not on current operation or current use of those facilities. So this is the long range plan of where it would be great to see that campus and every other campus get to in 10 or 20 years, but it's not an expectation that it happens right now, or it's that, you know, that it's even part of the next bond per se. That's obviously up to you all.
And one of the things I like about this design is the ability to phase it with starting back on the fields, be able to take it kind of like we've taken other campuses chunk by chunk.
Yeah.
Keep it operational as funds become available and then slowly make these changes. You know, and the way the current field on the back is positioned and utilized and having those old storage containers and trucking, shipping containers back there. I mean, it's not, the primary outdoor space is more of the basketball courts and that anyway for the campus flow.
Yeah.
So I think having the phased plan and being able to do it as we go, and as we identify the funds makes the most sense. And then we're able to move to a place where we can remove the building when we get there.
I think the intent is to give you an option that you can just build the new classrooms and keep the NPR and the portables and in the library, and that would be a second phase. Okay. So the last classroom in the Measure G is Santa Rosa Charter for the Arts, and this is exactly the same as it was in 2023 because nothing has really changed with that school. The enrollment's the same, the program is the same. Enrollment for the charter schools is a different analysis than the demographic projection. So we had a quick call with a principal there and just discussed if there's anything that's changed that we need to update for. And she can, you know, we confirmed that now that we don't really need to revisit it. So this plan will be the same, the costs will be updated as part of the update, and we just sent the whole thing to our cost estimator to take a fresh look at the whole thing. So they will be updating the construction costs for this campus as well.
The fencing, we got a bunch of comments, I think last year around fencing at the site. But this is saying it's not done yet.
The fencing is at DSA right now, should be done this summer.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we can actually show, we'll coordinate with Kathy and make sure we're showing that.
Fencing that was done or?
There's what we had to move a special ed program there this year, and due to the runner, we had to put that fence up to help keep the kid from running out into the street. That was the goal there.
Okay.
Yeah.
We had definitely gotten some comments on fencing here. I was like, I thought that was already approved.
No, that's one of the things that we've been kind of coordinating and finalizing, is making sure that we're showing that stuff that's in process as existing.
Is the K just kindergarten on the bottom right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's their existing kindergarten room. And these would be, it's not really labeled, but these would be 2 additional TK kinder rooms here. And I think they usually have the 4th kinder room over here.
That's all the Measure G schools, at elementary bond schools. Is there any other notes or questions before we move on to the high school schools?
Do we have the rest of the charters?
The rest of the charters are actually middle school. You know, they fall under Measure C.
Even
French
French.
Even French. It's currently on a secondary site.
Got it.
Oh. Got it.
Right?
But
So-
once we move it there, would it still be?
That's officially something that I will need to be asking all of you about, because there's some opportunities for some charter school facilities funding, depending on how we look at.
Whichever one gives us access to more money.
We'll be bringing forward.
Okay,
We'll be bringing forward an item to you. I'll send an update in the board weekly.
So you're gonna talk about them as the beginning of the secondary?
As being secondary, just due to their location, and keeping in mind too, for us, there's more money in Measure C. So there's more opportunity to do
For
something
matching.
here than there is with Measure G. We're gonna run out of funds a lot faster in Measure G than we will Measure C. So we like that it's on, I like right now that it's on the secondary site because there's more funding there. And as we built their TKs right now, we could use Measure C funds instead of Measure G.
So question on G, and I'll go around, well, 2 questions on G. One, just reconfirming that this has every portable getting removed since we have good capacity. There's no portables remaining. Okay.
With the exception of the couple that we're throwing on there.
Which are
Right,
covered.
yeah.
But they're gonna be removed and
Those are.
they also get,
Yes.
The goal would be to build those TKs at Burbank and get rid of those portables, right, within a couple of years here.
and then within any of these campuses, for what we're in, what we see our projected enrollment to be. Are we maintaining facilities that may not be needed to support the size of the student population on the site?
Permanent buildings wise, or?
Permanent buildings. Cause we're getting rid of the portables under this,
Yeah.
so are there any
Correct.
permanent buildings that we be maintaining that
That we don't need.
that wouldn't be needed because of the projections?
Yeah, the only one would be in Measure G.
Yeah, Measure G.
Is Lincoln, right? They have a lot more capacity in permanent structures than actual enrollment projections, and they're back, they're a mirror of Helen Lehman, except for the back modular, 6 classroom modular, so that one has a lifespan a lot shorter than the rest of the campus.
Yeah.
It's still in pretty good shape, but over time, I could see that one might not need to be there versus putting a lot of money into it.
And that's, yeah.
To upgrade it, yeah.
That's kind of where I'm going, is if we were maintaining a building, we should be prepared to not have a permanent building instead of maintaining it, just.
Correct, I think as the building is running at end of life, then it needs to be looked at to be removed instead of trying to maintain something that it really isn't needed, right? I mean, it's a waste of resources that are direly needed elsewhere.
Would it make sense to flag that in the plans, so we're acknowledging and we kind of see that as a part of future?
Yeah, we can make a note about that.
Yeah.
And I think that we couldn't like remove that whole building, like it would be a little too much.
No,
for them,
no, I
so-
meing-
But I think we
The
can note
concept of
that.
end of life and looking,
Yeah.
because, and I think that's something throughout the plan, as much as we want to be planning for the new and renovating. I
Yeah,
think it's also important for us to be identifying where, as we see these demographic changes happening, where we would be intentionally planning to not continue focusing on the building because of that.
I do think it's important to note though that at quite a few of our elementary sites, I think other than Lincoln, they're pretty full at capacity with their portables. And so as we build these permanent buildings, there may be times like Burbank where we may need to explore interim housing. Because in order to place those permanent buildings, we'll need to remove the portables and they don't have the spare capacity for us to play with anymore.
yeah.
I think those are the things we have to recognize will be navigating.
Okay. Any other questions on the Measure G sentence?
Just kind of the same, the same thing, but worded differently. As far as, it's all been answered. Basically, just what I had said before about our student capacity, master plan enrollment, planned student capacity. If we don't need the buildings, let's try not to build them.
Oh, yeah,
Mhm.
for sure.
Absolutely.
We don't have the money to do that, so.
And I think similar to our indicators of quality, and I don't want you to go create or go to another conference, but like maintaining
Yeah, thank you.
like indicators of reasons that we would intentionally not continue using something. Like if we have additional maintenance costs or supplies or things like that, and we're able to fit things within, like, being really intentional about our space and not just saying, okay, now we're gonna expand because we have more space.
Yeah.
Which I feel like that set a lot of expectations up. And during consolidation, that was one of the challenges, right? is we had expanded to get used to all that space, even though we had 10,000 fewer students.
That is my everyday battle with every principal, was their
Yeah.
space use. Yeah.
So let's, if we express that intentionality here, then it can flow through all of our decisions.
Yeah.
And I'd apply that across this whole plan.
Yeah.
That's not just G, but.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just one more comment, on the elementary schools, when we're doing these modernization projects, or we're building the new MBR buildings. Are we including the CNS, people, I know we're
Yeah.
serving.
Yeah.
To make sure that that's all getting modern.
Yeah, we have met with, IT, SPED, CNS. Yeah, we try to get everybody involved.
Everyone's in.
Yeah, because
Uh-huh.
CNS is on every site, and what are their needs as part of their modernization. Yeah, sure.
And then when the design for those projects happen, they will be very intimately involved. In that, and making sure that we get the exact equipment they want, et cetera.
Perfect, thank you.
Okay, moving on to French American. So, this is the data here. I think one of the things we have to resolve that says 0 for future enrollment, which is obviously not correct, but what we put in there for future enrollment for French American, I think is a conversation that we still need to have because it's not part of the demographic study. But they will have a student capacity of over 700 on this campus, which is obviously a lot more than they had at the Doyle Park campus. And so this is kind of what the French American moved to former Santa Rosa Middle School site looks like. So we have the 6 TK classrooms that are under construction out here right now.
This is the Santa Rosa Middle School campus.
It is.
So the address, okay, great.
It is. Yeah, it's one of those things where like, right now, that is their address, but.
Yeah.
Right, so next year it won't. Yeah, so currently, this is the project under construction, which also includes this playground. And some improvement in the blacktop too.
There in the front.
And the parking lot in the front. So most of this project is modernization of the existing spaces. There is some reconfiguration, like they don't need locker rooms. So reconfiguring the locker rooms into being a PE classroom and storage and some support spaces. On all of many campuses, we're showing all access restrooms that we've discussed before. So those are noted here. We're also showing a couple other kind of targeted water modernizations. I think this is the classroom that's like a computer lab currently that has a bunch of built-in kind of computer desk stuff from 20 years ago that needs to get torn out so that and then up here, these are kind of more middle school level science labs that aren't needed anymore either. So those would get a little more renovation to turn them into elementary school classrooms. But other than that, it's really just modernizing the existing spaces for the most part. And we are showing the potential for additional TK and kinder classrooms here in that if their student enrollment grew to the sort of full filling out this full campus, they would need a few more TK kinder classrooms just proportionally to serve those 2 grades. So that's what's shown there. And then the teal there is a covered walkway that could potentially connect those TK kinder classrooms back to the rest of the campus.
Hey, Eric, sorry, what's the capacity for Santa Rosa Middle School?
700, over 700.
754.
Yeah, a lot. I think about 250 more than their current site.
Yeah.
Give or take.
Roughly their wait list.
Yeah.
7 and 8 are,
That's Montgomery.
Co-located with Montgomery.
so is that what you're talking about, that what we decide, would they come to this campus instead?
No, that wasn't your intention.
Because that middle school families want a more comprehensive middle school experience, right?
Yeah, we talked about that in the meeting and they said they're very happy at Montgomery and they want the middle school kids to stay there. So we did not plan for that. So this is really planned as converting this to an elementary school campus.
And would we be expanding the kinder TK enrollment?
You
Correct.
They are, yeah, they are,
For next year.
they've accepted for next
Like
year.
2.
Yeah.
Okay,
And
2 children, 2 classes.
A new TK and a new kinder, yeah.
so that, how does that change for the ratios for third and up?
It'll
Right,
build,
or we
it'll,
need to expand those?
as they grow, and that's how they would fill out that campus, is as you have those more kinders and TKs coming in. It'd be lovely if we could have that everywhere.
And that's what you're saying about they're gonna need another TK component to be able to complete the filling.
Fill out the rest of those upper grade classes. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
that's what I was getting at.
If they had 750 kids, they'd need a few more TK classrooms because that's
To
just
support
2/8 of that population.
So the bubbles can.
Yeah. So that's really it for this school. It's pretty straightforward. We showed some exterior improvements to the track, things like that, that they wanted to see as well, which makes sense. Okay, so. There we go. So CCLA is essentially the same. plan as it was in 2022-23, which is part of why the words haven't been updated yet. So I think this is literally just the section copied over from that plan, and we'll update some of the data and things like that. That hasn't been the focus yet. But those are things we can clean up for the final. So this is literally just copied over from what the plan was in 2023, because again, context hasn't really changed there. So we will look at that, and that was showing new addition, kind of replacing eventually the portable TK kinder classrooms that were added at the front of the school a few years ago with permanent structures, and then adding a few more classrooms in the back.
And I will say on this campus that the track is shown in the wrong spot. So I know that there's a Little League partnership we have back there that's staying. So we're trying to show a way to alleviate the traffic issues that are there on Sebastopol Road, with the driveway being so close to Sebastopol Road on the side street. So, but it needs to be reworked as part of the plan. Yeah.
Is there any way to add a futsal court, remove the tennis court?
Yeah, that's actually what this is.
What is futsal? It's really cool soccer.
Soccer. Yeah,
Oh,
it's
sorry.
actually on there because they brought that up last.
Yeah, they brought that up.
Yeah, I think I was out there when someone was doing a site walk on that.
Yeah.
That's not how it goes to see
So
it.
that one's pretty straightforward. It's like I said, it's pretty much the same as it was before.
Just, when is the TK building?
We don't have that planned yet,
Okay.
but we are waiting for this to get,
So if
done.
they get through.
Yeah.
Yeah, they kind of had enough capacity at the moment, so where we had problems at the sites that we're doing now with capacity issues for sure, so.
I know that getting the bathrooms connected to the TK rooms will be really helpful.
Yes, for sure.
Well, yeah, I agree.
Those little emergency
Yeah,
runs.
there are 4-year-olds.
Yes. And they have their wait list.
Yeah, I think they may have a wait list at that level, so that is something that will.
Well, we'll
talk about
yeah,
that,
we'd
right?
be removing portables anyway, so it won't really up their capacity, right? Because they have a lot of portables up front that need to go away, so it's not, we're replacing portables with regular classrooms, and it's not really changing their classroom count to a higher number. It's just swapping out permanent for portable.
Then that would be my feedback, then, is we need to make sure that the campus can support the bubbles to.
There's plenty of room
Yeah.
to grow on this campus. It's not like there's a lack of space, so it's easy to add potential buildings if that's the case. That's not a problem.
Well, just from the perspective of, especially in dual immersion, if you don't have the student center at TKK, it's not like other schools where you can have
Right.
entered another level.
Kind of like what you're talking about with
French, we need so
Mhm.
we should probably look before this comes back at whether or not we need to add additional TK capacity to fully get the campus sustained.
All the little teal rectangles, are those all shade structures?
Yeah.
Why are they so, they look very random?
The idea was to have a couple that are in the TK Kinder play area, and then one that's kind of more in the quad, and then a few out by the field. But I think at this level, what's important, I don't know why this one's way out here, that one's probably not necessary, but at this point, we want to just identify a quantity of them and exactly how big they are and where they're located, we'll figure out later. It's really a square footage at this level.
To deal with traffic, like I'm just thinking about this back area next to the baseball field where that new blue building is. I mean, can't you like have kind of like a parking and stuff over here? I mean, before it used to be you drive up through back here and you do drop off and that's where the buses used to come. And like, don't you have some of that with?
Potentially, you're talking kind of in this area, Lamont?
Over here off of Gardner.
Yep.
There's this little.
Yeah, there's kind of that driveway back there.
Where the fence is.
Oh, the Boys and Girls Club.
Yeah. Yeah, we could take away additional field space and put additional parking and drop off.
Fire lane there, I think, is like.
Yeah, which we'd have to maintain. I think one of the things that's always challenging about that is there's a lot of details to those things as far as civil and traffic engineering to figure out how they actually work and don't make things worse. And so we don't want to get too far into the design, but if we wanted to identify a potential project like in that area to expand parking and drop off, it also would mean you'd have 2 parking and drop off areas, which I think could be problematic from a supervision standpoint too.
I'm sorry, where's the, like, older kids playground? Cause over there, it's you're moving the TK building.
Yeah. I,
And then
I don't
that
think
space
they
is-
really do they have an older kids play structure out there now, or is it really just
It's in
the
front.
black
It's
top?
in the
Is really
front.
the older kids
It's in the
playground?
front.
It's in the front.
Oh, it's in the front,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
It's where the buildings used, or.
I think it's still that same shape you have up front if you zoomed in, that's the play structure, right? There's the TK one in front of the TK, but then there's the.
The peanut shade.
Yeah, I think it just needs to be relabeled, because right now it says redeveloped TKK play yard.
But that should be upper grade
I mean,
playground.
but-
I think the right upper grade playground's currently there.
Yeah.
And then the TK
Or the better thing might be to show the upper grade playground at the back.
Yeah, maybe show a new play structure out
Although
there.
Then we really don't have the balls going into Sebastopol.
Yeah,
Well, that's why we show,
especially when the kids are.
that's why we show the buildings the way they are, to try to help that.
Okay. Yeah, I think that would be good to add a play structure, an upper grade play structure out.
The only problem with that space, or where the play area is, where now that the building's gonna be there. It's just, that's where all the kids go and play.
Mhm.
Because the first orange building is for the smaller grades, and then the second row building is for the older kids.
Yep.
So trying to get them to walk over there, or have them go to the back. But you can't fit 200-300 kids in the playground.
The one out here in the front.
Uh-huh.
No, you definitely can. So I think that's part of why having that play structure out in the back is probably the best option, even though it is a little bit far for, you know, for the kids that are in this building. But I think that's probably, it's usually not a good idea to like put a play structure in between the buildings because it's just too loud. So I think having an additional play structure kind of, you know, maybe in this area is probably the best option.
And to get back here to these basketball courts and stuff, they go through the gym. I see all these fences here.
No, I think that the intent is they can come straight out here. I think maybe the intent of the fence is just to be able to close off the core part of the campus after hours. So there'd be gates there that would be open during the school day.
And there's currently gates there.
There might be, yeah.
Mhm.
There it is.
I think on the off pickup question, it'd be good to revisit it with them, because they are one campus that has 3 bell schedules. So there might be a benefit when we're addressing that, and I know the area that trustee Medina was talking about, it's already used for parking on the grass, so. I always feel like if we can accept behaviors that are already happening and embrace them, you know.
Yeah, if I remember the meetings from 3 or 4 years ago here, I think we probably talked about pick up and drop off for a solid hour.
Yeah.
And that's often the case, and it's a difficult problem to solve. So we showed kind of like, maybe it's best if we just create another entrance and another lane out to the street so that there's other options for how to move in and out, but that would really need to be a traffic study and civil engineering question to figure out.
I don't
what the
want to
right-
trigger that, so let's.
To LCL. So looking at you can see the enrollment data there, a projected enrollment in the low 900s. And what we are looking at here for the plan is really pretty similar to what it was in 2023, where we are showing, the way we've showed this is kind of these modular classrooms along the bottom here. We've kind of just shown as remove if not needed. They're not needed for the projected enrollment, but I know there's a lot of kind of uncertainty about exactly how that's going to play out in this neighborhood, in this school specifically. So those classrooms are kind of exactly what you were talking about before. Those are ones that are going to reach the end of their useful life much sooner.
Yeah, those are modular those are all modular, right? Built back in, I think, 2001. So they're at their end of life here.
And removing them would still meet our capacity on the campus.
The capacity calculation does not count those.
Yeah.
Quick question, was one of the questions I submitted was on these numbers, was this considering 7 and 8 being added?
Yes.
Yes, and the manual is here when we want to get into the projected enrollment, don't know if we want to wait until after we get through all of the pieces on that. And also there's a question, I think they're planning right now that my understanding is as they're planning where middle school is they were looking at that area over there. We also have some special education classes in there right now as well. So I think they were looking at maintaining the special education classes and the 7-8 over there. Is that
They
correct?
showed 7-8 and like the L and the R, 15,
Yeah,
14.
kind of in
13.
this area.
Yeah, like in that little section there.
Mhm.
Oh,
And
the
that's-
back corner.
Yeah.
Oh,
Oh, the white model, that used to be Mid-Rose High School.
No, Midrose used to be the.
Yeah, right?
The M building, the G area over there, no? Like between G and K. That little quad area used to be there.
So one of the couple of things that just we can kind of highlight here that we talked about for all the 7-8s. We had a lot of good conversations, like Eric mentioned, we had some conversations with the students, we had a lot of good conversations with the site committees about now that we are creating 7-8 campuses, like what does each of those campuses need to have? So obviously those classrooms, that's relatively straightforward and that it's the same capacity for a middle school per classroom for middle school as a high school. So that's relatively straightforward math. But there are other things that are not so straightforward math, like athletic programs. Even if you had the same number of kids in a 7-12 as a 9-12, you have twice as many, maybe not twice as many, but 1.5 times as many athletic teams. And so that's a real crunch and some of the 7-12s you have today are feeling that. So one of the things we looked to plan for is each of your high schools currently has a sort of a main gym and a practice gym. So one of the things we want to identify is some improvements to the second gym to make it capable for middle school events. So making sure it has scoreboards, making sure there's like at least a little bit of seating, making sure there's a divider curtains so we can have divider curtains in both gyms so that you can have 4 practices running in there at the same time and it's functional. We also wanted to look and make sure that each 7-12 had a kind of NPR space that could be used not only as an eating area and an event space, but can also serve sort of accessory athletic things, events, whether that's, practice events or meetings and things for the teams, whether it's cheerleading practice, whether it's different things like that to kind of take the pressure off it. If we had all the money in the world, maybe every campus gets a 3rd gym, but that probably doesn't really make sense and didn't seem like the right thing to plan for. So you'll see that at each one of these schools. Some of your schools have an NPR space like that already, like Pioneer and Montgomery both do. But the other 3 don't. Santa Rosa has like a tiny little one that doesn't really serve those purposes. And LC and Carrillo don't have that. So you see on this plan, a new NPR building in the quad at LC here to provide that space and for those uses. And then everything else is really kind of modernization that's really pretty similar to what we showed previously. We did show a weight room addition to the gym and then converting, I think, what is sort of an existing sort of temporary makeshift weight room into a dance room. In building O there, and then room O and O1 and O2 are special education rooms now for some of your ESN students, I think, and we want to keep that as well. On all these campuses, we didn't label which classrooms for special ed, but we did account for them in the capacity analysis for an appropriate number of special education classrooms, because those are loaded at a lower number. So we want to make sure we're considering that in the capacity analysis. But in reality, for most of them, the infrastructure is the same. So which classrooms are special ed is a program decision, not a facilities decision.
I thought I recall in one of the meetings, the principal saying that they wanted a basketball court over here on the side by the middle school area.
Yeah, we talked to him about changing the last group of tennis courts there into middle school basketball and like a ball wall and some foursquare and stuff for an area for 7-8.
Okay. Yeah, we can show that. I know we talked about that a few times and I didn't quite remember where we landed because at one point we were thinking there are only 2 basketball courts out here, but there are actually more. And but yeah, we can show kind of these 2 being converted into more middle school kind of blacktop kind of play space. One of the things we did talk about in each of the one other thing is kind of creating an outdoor play area for middle school students because they still need to play in a way that is a little bit different from high school students and much louder. And so, identifying on this campus, improving the site area here and here to be kind of that middle school outdoor play and gathering area that's a little bit independent from the high school space. And really, we kind of thought about that as sort of a middle school neighborhood on each high school campus where maybe core classes are and, you know, that kind of courtyard and some of that support staff. But it's not kind of a rigid boundary between there, and there could be sharing of as facilities, especially specialized facilities like art, science, physical education spaces, things like that.
Going back to the gym conversation.
Oh.
And again, this is one of those things that needs further discussion because currently the idea is to have them separate, but we don't get a ton of cost savings if we have two separate programs on one campus.
Right.
And what that makes me think about is the gyms. So ideally, you're gonna want to have all kids to fit in one space at some point for a rally or for whatever. I don't know if any of our schools are currently set, maybe Santa Rosa. I know they've got a big gym. I know Korea has a really big gym. But just like something to think about, I know like a third gym is Pipe Dreams, and depending on the direction that our secondary campuses go, that's a really like, to me, it seems like a very stark reality that we'll need to have something that can hold all of the students at once.
Are you talking about holding all students at once?
Yes.
No, I don't think any building will be big enough to house
No.
1,500 students or something at once, right? So even a gym, even a large gym can't do that.
Yeah.
You still have to break that up somehow.
Yeah.
No
And I
matter
would-
what. You can do it outside, but inside's gonna be tough.
I would say the other thing to think about too is that for pretty much all of your high school campuses, the projected enrollment for the 7-12 is not that different than the 9-12 enrollment was a few, not so long ago.
Yeah.
So it's not really more kids than we've accommodated on these campuses before with the same facilities.
Did you guys find out about the status of, they were talking about these bathrooms over here that they wanted for the middle schoolers that weren't previously remodeled and aren't currently being used? What the status was?
Yeah,
Like
we're
one
looking,
side of them that they don't.
yeah, we're looking at that. They don't use them because of supervision. I'm not aware that they're unusable. I think they have a hard time with the high school keeping both sets open and keeping them supervised.
Okay,
The reason they're not
what I
used.
recall them mentioning at the meeting was that one half wasn't remodeled. when they
Yeah,
remodeled.
the orange is a full remodel, right, to make it, so that's what that's indicating.
I guess I was just wondering what had happened by the time they start in.
Not this summer, no.
But I did confirm after our last meeting there, when Casey was asking about if the other one, if there were issues with it, I did confirm with custodial that the other one is fine. And so they could use it if they can supervise it.
And right here, you can show this gate, like over here on the left side, there's by the little driveway on the parking, there's a little gate there.
Yeah.
But over here, there isn't, will this one open as well, or?
Yeah, they don't need to, but we aren't very consistent at this point about showing all the gates because it's hard to at the scale, but. And there'll be gates between these buildings. And that kind of thing, so you can kind of think of like anything with a fence line is fences and gates.
Fire inspector probably has a.
Yeah, you'd have a little to say on that, yeah.
And I forwarded that email, Eric, and Lisa about the press box and the barriers for. both
Yeah,
areas,
so
you
the
know,
press
and
box is being addressed with the roofing project this summer. The real problem here is, they put a ladder and railing up there on a roof that is not meant to house people. And so the weight of people has crushed that roof, creating the problem. So it shouldn't be up there anyway, but so we need to remove all that. And it is planned to be re-roofed, but that's the reason why they have the problems they have.
What about the barriers for Ray Korea and LC for that?
Yeah, so we are planning on the fencing, when we do the fencing project, to have that at the bleachers. We work with Rye on that.
Okay, just because it's not on here, so.
Yeah, it's hard to show that on that bleacher like that, but it is a part of the fencing project.
So it's in process.
The finer details.
Yeah, it's in process as part of the fencing plan for this and Maria Korea as well.
Address the water issues kind of on that third base line area on their field.
No.
it says revitalized athletic field.
Yeah, I mean, that,
Does
yeah.
that revitalization include addressing kind of whatever that water intrusion issue is?
Yeah, there's a lot of issues out of that massive field there, yeah, that need to be kind of addressed overall, new grading, new.
It's also a
Sprinkler
hard
stuff,
spot for water. It's just a very wet area.
yeah.
Seems like it's a wet area when it's 110
That-
degrees out.
Well,
Yeah,
that-
the-
that
that
whole
area
area, and
that's
then there's
very
that creek
So it was there.
Hey, of the wetland or something, so I don't know if it will ever dry out.
Okay.
One thing I noticed in both the den and the gym, that the little basketball things that come up and down, like some of them have not been coming down or not been going up. Are those
That's a
tickets?
maintenance request, if they put it in, we'll fix it, yeah, for sure. Yeah, I haven't heard that, but it should be put in as a maintenance ticket for sure.
So I think it's important for us to be consistently moving through this and not having the portables and the modulars, especially based on capacity showing on the future plans. I know we're gonna get into the conversation about how the capacity is assessed, but we wouldn't use modular or portables anyway. So I definitely would support us, getting those removed so that we're showing what the future plan is consistently throughout all the different sites.
Okay.
Yeah,
Well, I think just that, I don't know if I missed one of the meetings there, but I recall that they assume that all these buildings are gonna stay there, right? Based on the planning that they're doing.
But they're not going away right now. I
Correct.
think the issue is, they're not going away right now, but we don't need to replace them long-term based on the current enrollment projections. And so what we're showing on the plan is sort of a version of that with sort of, you know, noting that there's some instability there, but I think your point is like, we should be consistent. If we're not planning them in the long-term plan, then they shouldn't show on.
We have multiple sites that we're gonna continue using portables and modulars for in the coming years.
Yeah,
unfortunately, yeah, we don't have enough, yeah,
And so
exactly.
as, you know, but similar to those sites, you know, there's.
Yeah, we don't
where
show
these-
them on those
Even
sites.
if we move these projections by 20-30%,
yeah,
we're
you know,
still not gonna need to have
Correct.
modulars and portables on this site.
agreed.
Correct.
So I think we should be consistent through all the sites and we don't wanna folks to have a unexpected long-term expectation that portables and modules would stay there for the planning if we're able to remove them.
We
Agreed.
also don't wanna be using space that's, we're not using to capacity. And then maintaining that space, it's, like, we don't want people spreading out like a fish, right? A
Yeah,
fish in a
because-
fishbowl. You don't want your fish to get too big just because you got a 10-gallon aquarium when you really can only take care of a 1-gallon aquarium.
Yeah, no, I think.
Yeah, this site stresses the custodial staff pretty good because it's a large site. It's very large. It's a great site, but it is, has a lot of rooms to clean.
I really feel
Every
like-
night.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead, sorry.
The one thing that would be very helpful just for us to understand, and I think just for concerns that I've seen it with different sites. Kind of like I don't know, a spreadsheet that identifies each classroom and its capacity and or special usage, so we could really
Yep.
easily calculate what this capacity, because there seems to be disagreement at times as to what capacity is and how it's calculated. And it's not just this site, but several sites that's happened, so I think if that could be like an addendum to each site.
Yeah, we
to
can
the end of the
kind of
document.
show our work, if you will, and show that.
You'll have that in the final document. There's a full capacity sheet analysis that will cover each school. That's a requirement we have for Prop 2.
But classroom by classroom.
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, we'll stay building in 4 classrooms, but I think that's what we need.
Yeah.
If I can get clarification, because I think what maybe I'm hearing is it being used as a classroom or is it being used as storage or is it being used as a flex space? Is that more what you were asking?
Well, there's like, for example, like in the science building, right? There's the ones that are like the labs with all the Bunsen burners,
Right.
where they wouldn't necessarily be
Right.
in a classroom and or.
Yep.
Do
That's
other schools have that though?
They-
I mean,
Yeah,
But
they're
they
used as
absolutely can.
classrooms and other, we
They're
show
used as
capacity,
classrooms,
right?
right.
Like,
There is
Yeah.
a capacity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
if you have capacity, you can do that.
I mean, it's the same comment I've had across every single one of these sites, you know, if we're gonna be significantly over capacity, we shouldn't be spending
Yeah.
operating funds or maintenance funds or renovation funds or anything like that in a place where we can focus it on the students we do have. So for me, it's very much about focusing our funds where we know we're gonna have the students, and so we should look at, you know, how do we best utilize our custodial staff? How do we best use those?
Absolutely.
And so I want to see that in this plan, somewhere, I think it was Lincoln, where we were talking about it, you know,
Yeah.
same philosophy.
Yeah.
If we know something, when something comes to end of life, removing it is gonna be the financially prudent thing to do, we should say that now. So that we don't have, you know, surprising people.
Understood. Yeah.
How do partnerships work, with our school campuses? Like, for instance, we have Boys and Girls Club on certain campuses and they require a space. With Carrillo, with Elsie Allen, we have like the Santa Rosa Community Health Center. How does that work with facilities management plan as well as like the money that it costs us to maintain these things? Is that part of an MOU? Do they pay
Yeah.
some bit?
Lisa can probably speak best to their MOU there.
Do they give us some money for these things?
We have, I can't remember off the top of my head, I have to look at it, and it does come to you every so many years, and there's, you know, extension periods on that. And I cannot remember off the top of my head.
We just did it
what
like
is.
2 years ago, I think.
Yeah, there was
Give or
a
take.
list of those.
At the health center, the LCL Health
Yeah,
Center.
the update on it, and it's around, it's. Whenever we have a joint use, there's an agreement around who's responsible for what portion of what, and so there's usually some kind of shared cost. Or there's a service that's being provided in exchange for us maintaining our buildings, because we're still responsible for the buildings, they're still ours, they still have to meet DSA. It's any contract, anything that's done there, we have to contract for. So that's all stuff that has to be worked out in those individual agreements.
We're paying the utilities.
Yeah, there's.
And then like
Yeah.
sometimes there will be like other parent groups that utilize a space or an external group that's not necessarily, maybe they're putting funds towards students, but not necessarily like, they're not our staff. How does that work?
It depends on whether it's part of a regular agreement that's part of like a joint use agreement, that we let them come on and do that because they're providing services to our students. Or, you know, there's something around that, or it may be that there's a rental fee, or it may be that they can use it for the authority because they eat certain things under the Civic Center Act. So there's different.
And are those
things that guide
agreements
that.
like, those are things that are, people can access, or how do you find those things?
Yeah, that's all public record. It's all within our contracts and facility use stuff. So I can send out some more information.
Okay, thank you.
I think we approve them as they get renewed, right?
Yeah.
The joint use agreements, yes.
Yes.
And from a facilities planning standpoint, it differs a little bit based on the type of program we're talking about. So like the health center, we just showed as the dedicated health center space on here because it's been improved for that program. It can't be used as classrooms anymore. So we don't count it as classroom capacity. We show that facility. For like a Boys and Girls Club, they don't need a dedicated space necessarily. You know, if there's a classroom that they can use that's not being used,
Or
that's
when they're
great.
contract, they do.
Well, you get, that's kind of from a facility.
That's in the agreement part.
But also part of what, that's part of the uses for like the flex classroom and the PD classroom. They have identified on why we have those flexible spaces, like those are the kinds of things that are good uses of those spaces, because they're a little bit larger spaces. But it's also a little bit easier to share than a typical classroom. So that's kind of how we thought about those kinds of like after school kind of programs and things on elementary school campuses.
I think that like with the situations that we're in financially and changing up campuses, I know that stuff comes to us for the most part. But it's just helpful for us to see that information, for it to be pointed out, like, this is an extra thing, and these are the reasons why we're doing it. Just for more of the transparency than anything else. Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
Okay, moving on. Maria Carrillo. Okay, so here you can see the capacity and the projected enrollment for Carrillo. So this is projecting Carrillo as a junior and senior high school, a 7 and 12 campus, and that would have a projected capacity of over 2,000. So what that plan looks like here. You can see there's a lot of modernization, some reconfiguration of science labs and some of the other support programs. We have the gym that was mentioned earlier in the public comments. And we can look at options for maybe including the weight room as part of that. And for the kind of athletic performance center side of things that was mentioned earlier. What we had shown there is adding a second gym here and converting the existing second gym into the NPR. Because it doesn't really there's not really another place to put the NPR that makes sense. You can't put an NPR out here, it won't work as a cafeteria kind of space or things like that. But the existing second gym is actually in a pretty good spot for that. So that was one thing that we proposed. And then in the back, there are the same kind of modular classrooms here as there are that we just talked about at LC Allen. And so we're actually showing two new buildings. One would be replacing M&N and one would be adding additional capacity to meet the projected enrollment for the combined 712.
Just quick clarification, based on these enrollment numbers. Is this assuming, RBMS closing?
Yes.
Okay.
With the two-story building,
Yep.
how many middle school students does that fit?
So I think each of those buildings, if I'm not mistaken, is like 16 classrooms.
Oh, okay, oh, so those are both for the middle school.
We don't really identify on here like which classrooms are for middle school and for high school, because from an infrastructure standpoint, they're pretty much the same. So it's really more of a what name you put on the door. We did show kind of a middle school play area because we want to identify that on each campus, and it seemed like if one of these buildings would probably be the right one to be those middle school classrooms, because kind of at the edge of the campus.
And then. Okay, so they don't lose any space for their fields or anything, right?
No,
Okay,
it takes away one set of the basketball courts, but that was something we talked about, as was mentioned earlier, that seemed like the right choice.
okay.
So there's a lot of other modernization kind of pieces to this, but I think those are all pretty straightforward, and most of that is pretty similar to what it was in 2023.
Do a lot of the secondaries have similar, I know they all have kind of like the same stuff, right? Like everybody's got some kind of a performance art
Yeah.
thing, everybody's trying to get to gyms in half.
Mhm.
With like the performing arts center, PAX, that's what we're
Yes.
calling these days. Are they all about the same size? Do they vary widely? Do you know?
They vary pretty widely. Yeah,
What's that?
Montgomery's is a little smaller.
It is.
yeah, and
Okay.
Santa
I mean,
Rosa is a
Santa
bit
Rosa
bigger,
is big,
Yeah.
large due
Yeah.
to its age,
Yeah.
but
but
the
Korea
others are all pretty much the same. The Pioneer one is similar to the two that they built at Creo and LC.
Yeah.
Size wise.
I haven't been in Elsie's, I've been in the other ones. Okay.
it's pretty similar.
Got a question
Yes.
about, and this is secondary in general. So when I go to the campuses and I talk to the kids, I usually ask them, what are the biggest problems on your campus? What, if you were principal for the day, what would you want to fix on your campus? Two things they all say. Number one, believe it or not, is the lunch. Like, how do we, when we're talking about configuring the lunch area, they all complain that I have to wait so long in line to get my lunch that I can't, I have 2 minutes to try to wolf down whatever I have. So when we're thinking about reconfiguring or reworking these areas, I just wanna, that's one thing we need to think about. How do we do it different? 2 lines, whatever it is to try to minimize that, because we've shrunk it down so far and we're putting more and more kids on this campus, so.
Well,
They
the other
need
change
the chance to.
It's changed so much as far as like.
You guys are so
every
much more.
three- Yeah.
Yeah.
than you did 10 years ago.
That's
Yeah.
a huge
And
difference.
also,
That's the biggest change, but so I think to answer that question specifically for here, we showed a major renovation of the kitchen. And figuring out how to solve that problem will be part of the design of that renovation of the kitchen.
Okay. Just on all the camps, I
Yeah.
wanna make sure we're doing that for all the campuses.
Absolutely.
I imagine I mean, if you do something where you're getting them faster, you're also gonna need more staff. And that's an issue. To me, the issue is scheduling, like they don't have time. So like when you go to like a club meeting, you have to decide, am I gonna get lunch or am I gonna go to the club? Right?
Yeah.
Because there's like 30 minutes to do everything.
There's some of that. I think there are facilities, things that we can do to improve that can help that food get to kids a lot quicker. And move that through, and we see that with a lot of other schools that we work with too. Everyone facing this problem because after COVID, the way food was dealt with at schools changed a lot, and so you have twice as many kids that eat lunch probably from the cafeteria than did pre-COVID. And so no one's facilities are set up for that. So it's a pretty consistent problem, but there definitely are things that we can do to configure the equipment so that you can grab and go more quickly, so that it doesn't have to be as much of a one at a time thing. We can take that and have 4 lines to go through, and 2 of them are you just grab the thing and you go.
Right.
Because a lot of them are set up for like everyone to have to stop and pay for everything too, and that's not really as much a part of the thing anymore either. So there are things that we can do to reconfigure it. They're kind of below the level of detail that we'll get to in this plan.
Yeah, perfect. And what was just the second thing, just so for everyone's edification, is the bathroom issue.
I was gonna guess.
They're so tight. No one uses the bathroom
Yeah,
because of the
absolutely.
vape parties that are going on. So I know we're trying to address that with a lot of the hallway.
Yeah, we're showing all, like, we didn't really talk about that tonight because we talked about it before, but we are showing all access restrooms for all of the secondary schools.
Yeah, at least now they'll just, I guess, be vaping by themselves. They don't have their little friends in there partying. but
Yeah.
whatever.
As a parent of
That's
2
another
center of the
issue.
high school kids, that would have been my restrooms would have been tough.
It does sound like it's naturally getting better with having more of the SSAs on the campus.
Yeah.
I think we're seeing a reduction of those incidents.
Yeah, I have not heard the same problems we've had in the past, luckily.
So that's good.
We'll give an update on that in safety.
Yep.
Maybe next week.
Next week, that's next week's conversation.
Yep.
All right. So moving on to Montgomery. See there, we have a planned seating capacity of about 1,700, a projected enrollment around 1,500. So a little bit of room there, but bringing the capacity down from what it is today, which is over 2,200. So you can see that here. So we have the new 2-story building back here that's shown in white. So a couple things that are a little bit unique about Montgomery is just the sheer number of portable classrooms that are still on this campus, which is why that existing capacity is so high. I don't think all of those are used currently. I hope all of them are not used currently. And so,
You don't have enough teachers to fill them, there's not enough people there.
yeah, and I think the other thing,
Yes, agreed.
the other thing that's a little bit unique about this campus too, is that the gyms are more of an issue. The existing gyms are undersized. They don't really have a big gym, if you will. And so,
Or the ability to put a curtain to divide the gym in half to actually run 2 PEs or 2 sports at the same time.
Seating.
Or seating, they have the lowest bleacher count. And I can't change the bleacher count, because when
So
I
drop-
add ADA to it, you'll drop the seating even lower.
so what we're showing here is actually replacing one of the gyms with a new gym.
But you can't take out one.
I know.
Which
So
is
we came
why
up with this,
to
Eric came
replace.
up with this great idea.
Every once in a
What
while.
if we put a new gym on top of the tennis courts?
Ooh,
And-
but what about the tennis court?
Well, either, we still have 4 tennis courts here. We think we have to reconfigure exactly how it's designed, but that's in the design phase. We think we can fit that new gym and new locker rooms into this spot where they'll actually work really well to serve the field too, and the baseball fields. And then you can also build that while the existing gym is still there, and then tear down the existing gym, so you don't have a time where you only have one gym.
The locker rooms is a nice addition for all the sports, so they don't have to go like through all the fences and all the things.
Yes. And then we can convert some of the old locker rooms into weight room and storage, and then, modernize the existing small gym. So that's a little bit unique for here, and then we have some new classroom buildings.
Wait, modernize the existing.
Large.
Thank you.
That's the existing large gym, sorry.
It'll become a small gym.
Yeah, it'll become the small gym, exactly. And then we have some new classroom buildings back here to replace the old art building that's kind of at the end of its useful life as well. And so we're showing dedicated classrooms for the special ed program. They have some of the special needs students on this campus that they would really like to keep on this campus, but they need appropriate facilities. So that's kind of what that is for. And then replacing those art classrooms, and they talked about needing a kind of a third music space on campus in addition to the band and chorus classrooms that are in the pack. And then we talked about adding a new building to provide space for 3 CTE rooms as well, for career technical education in the back as well.
They're back there because that work yard.
Yeah, because then they can have a work yard and they're kind of loud. And they could use vehicle access and stuff too, so we thought that would be a good place for those.
Like metal or auto.
Yeah, and that metal or auto, or it could be, biomedical or the
Green construction back there, yeah.
Great if we can get auto, Nick.
How about
Talking
wood?
about that.
Oh, no, it's more-
Okay, let's think about, remember.
So to answer that question, what we're planning. Yeah, our large classroom shop spaces that could fit whatever CTE program you guys decide to run. Then we'll have, this allocates square footage to provide a space to support that, but we don't need to decide what CTE programs could be there now.
Yeah, I just, the location I was asking, because it's like,
Yeah.
it's far away, so.
Yes, that
We're
was the intent.
anticipating noise and we're anticipating.
Exactly.
So was your follow-up on the question on the kiln and all that?
Yeah, that, I know exactly what she's talking about. It's just, that's not here for a large, this is long-term projecting. That's more of a site-specific need that can be addressed, more directly with us through the site, not necessarily shown here as a kiln shed and.
That's right next to the art building, right?
It's right where they show that new art building, so as we plan and do that, when that project comes to fruition one day, that can be planned as well as part of it. We don't show detail like that in this, as we talk about, this is a 30,000 foot kind of view of everything. There's very few details on it, because if the board decides to move forward with something like that, then we go into that planning phase with the site, and we really get specific on their needs.
And then we'd probably find out that one of these art classrooms needs to be a ceramics lab.
Right.
It needs to have whatever gas or electric kiln they want.
If I can just summarize something you said though, or reiterate it. It doesn't mean that we're waiting until this is done to address that. That's a short-term issue versus the long.
Correct. It's just not on the long-term planning issue thing here, yeah.
That's not there, because that's also where they are.
Correct.
Right, it would be part of
It could fit within this concept.
And
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, and then there was that issue about IB requiring a place to display art. Is that somehow addressed?
There's an art place in the new building, right? Has an art gallery in the new building. I don't know if they're using that, but that is a space.
There is.
Somebody is. There's
Yeah,
stuff in there.
Right when you walk in,
Right
it's
when
right
you-
there. Yeah, that was what we
There'll
designed.
be a presentation around some of the specialized programs, and we'll have some more information and people from the site there to talk about some of the things that aren't required in a separate in an upcoming meeting.
This campus as well as the Santa Rosa campus, are like, I would say pinch points for the whole district, just because of how fast tracked their move happened, and then putting so many kids on a campus that already had significant needs. I know we'll talk about it more, Santa Rosa too. Something that's come up, in the last, hasn't even been a year, has it? Goodness sakes. With that consolidation is the priority piece, as far as like, well, there's a lot of talk about making sure that the 3 campuses that will be 7-12 in the near future are getting the time that they need to make sure that everything's set up correctly, and we're still having the complications of the 2 that are set up. So just part of the priority conversation with the needs of the students that are in seats currently, making sure that they have safe spaces that meet all of their educational needs.
And we had good priority conversations in each site committee meeting. We have a little grid that we do where we ask everyone to tell us for each project, is it high, medium, or low priority, and then tell if it's high, medium, or low cost. And that really feeds into that IOQ score process too. All right, so moving on to Pioneer. So you can see the capacity numbers here. We're looking at a projected enrollment of 1562 and a planned capacity of a little less than 100 students more than that. So the plan here, you can see the new two-story building that's under construction right here. So that's shown in white, just like the other projects that are under construction. Kind of other highlights here, lots of modernization as we would expect. And then we are showing removing all the existing portables here as well. That does cut the capacity pretty close. So we kind of indicated where if, if enrollment grows from that, where an additional classroom building could be located if needed, and kind of noted it that way. And you'll see we did that a few times on the separate tables as well. One of the other high priority items, especially for Andrea, is a gym addition, a gym lobby addition. The situation there for sort of entering the gym and having restrooms and concessions and stuff is pretty subpar. So that's kind of an important piece there to make the gym really kind of up to that standard. And then we have a couple of fitness rooms that we're adding here as well. And then there is a multi-use room. As we talked about, they have an existing multi-use room already. And then some other modernization things, reconfiguring some of the band and choir rooms have just kind of an inefficient layout now. So there's some improvements that we can make there. And then the all access restrooms as well, which we've noted here. So Pioneer's relatively straightforward because the big project there is already ongoing. I think that renovating the quad is another kind of high priority item for them too, because it's a little bit of a mess now. So that brings us to Ridgeway.
Did you see their Spark Center? This is the most amazing thing you've ever seen.
That's actively we designed.
It's so beautiful.
Thank you for the
It's so beautiful.
Unprompted.
I hope you like the new two-story building just as much.
Wow, it's not gonna be quite as exciting.
So, thank you. Thanks. So looking at Ridgeway hasn't changed either. So this is again, just bringing forward the 23 plan, and we'll update some of the text and stuff, but nothing else is really new here. The main projects here are some modernization of the existing spaces, removing some of the portables and providing a new NPR. One of the things we noticed as we were doing the estimating is like, this is too big of a box for that NPR. So it needs to get a little like smaller. The estimator was like, your shape is 16,000 square feet and your text says 11. So which one do you want? And so we need to make that box a little small. So that other than that, I think this one, again, this is a conversation we have with the principal there about if any of the needs are changed, and really they haven't. So we this one will be pretty straightforward.
So my one concern on this one is that's one of the, I think it's a softball field that NPR would be going on. And I know that there's the next slide from Santa Rosa, there's discussion of an all turf weather field.
Yeah.
For an additional diamond there, but it seems like Santa Rosa Ridgeway campus has far fewer diamond sport fields than any of our other secondaries already. And I'm worried about taking out one, because the other softball field's in a really weird place, which I imagine in the future we could see a proposal to put something else there, because it's literally in the middle of.
Ooh, we have discussed that, yes.
So we already are short one baseball field. Talking about now removing one diamond field, and then we have another diamond field that's not ideal. So part of my concern is actually just looking at this holistically, maybe with the district office transitions classrooms and the Santa Rosa, since they're all one block, and making sure that we're accounting, because I can see fields being used between Ridgeway and Santa Rosa and things like that. So
they were used that way when they had multiple softball teams. They don't anymore, but now they don't use it anymore. But Santa Rosa did used to when there was, I think, a little bit more.
Because I think one of the challenges, like especially when we talk about adding freshman sports, when we talk about adding middle school components, we talk about those types of things being able to be a focus for expansion in the future. Like it's very constrained for the number of options that are available. And so I think that's just one thing that.
Yeah, it is. And I think we could look at it. It'd be hard to make it baseball. I think it's too small, probably next to a parking lot, but or future parking lot. And then,
What the wrong with a softball field in the middle of all the buildings?
yes. And then, but when we get to Santa Rosa, there's some other options with that large
Yeah.
field, right? That's Santa Rosa High is behind the tennis courts there that has options to place multiple things, you know.
Yeah.
Depending on use.
Yeah,
As well.
table that a little bit, and let's talk about it when we get to Center Rosa.
Yeah, but I'm just,
But
but I'm thinking
also
of it
the-
in context of this is a diamond that's.
Yeah, and
gonna go
right now
away.
that MPR doesn't exist, so
Yeah.
it can fully be used as a softball
Right.
field now. Yeah,
Yeah, or a convertible
or,
for like a JV baseball.
yeah, depending on how far they hit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But-
But yes,
Are the portables shown on this?
So we're showing removing those portables.
Okay.
On here. I think there's only a couple.
yeah.
And we're showing removing there's like an existing classroom building right here that would essentially should sort of be replaced by the end.
Kind of like a semi-MPR multi-use space right now, so
Right,
that
yeah.
would go away and that
All
would
right,
make room
yes.
for that.
Okay, so for Santa Rosa High, so this one, we end up with a capacity of a little over 2,000 and our projection enrollment is a little less than 1,700. And we are showing removing all the portables, but keeping all the existing permanent buildings. And there aren't really modular buildings here. So it doesn't really make sense to show tearing down on the buildings. So that's kind of how we get to a little bit more room, I guess.
There are modular buildings, they're just where that MPR is.
Yeah, they're modular, but yeah, we're showing them all removed on this plan. So major projects here, we're showing a new building kind of in the existing ArtQuest location that would be both replacing the kind of specialized ArtQuest facilities that don't fit into a regular, into any of the other buildings, essentially. And also putting a piece of the admin there, really the kind of public facing parts of the administration so that can really become the front door to the campus, which makes much more sense with the visitor parking and the fencing and creating a secure perimeter for the school. Still keeping a lot of the counseling and student services part in the main building. Thinking about pulling the College and Career Center into where the current kind of admin office is when you enter the campus. And that'll allow us to create that secure perimeter and point of entry that we want in a way that we never really could in the historic building. So that was kind of one of the big things that we talked about, and that's this blue box here is sized to show those ArtQuest facilities, the black box, the video studio, the art classrooms in that space, as well as that admin space in a 2-story building.
So it's not just one block, there are going to be rooms.
Yes. We just don't want to figure out where they are yet.
It's not just,
And there's a little spreadsheet that added up how much square footage we need for that, and that's how that rectangle got to be that size.
and so it's not just black box, it would also be like the specialized art room.
Exactly, yeah.
So all of those spaces.
All of those spaces.
All those spaces would get a non-modular.
Yes.
Option also.
Not a shrunk ArtQuest.
Yeah.
We showed replacing all of the existing spaces.
And then the MPR space.
Yeah.
And I think this may go into the projections conversation, but that's kind of where the math modular area is now.
Modulars, yeah.
And the theory there is that there's already existing classrooms that can serve the projected population on the campus.
Correct.
As part of that, we're just not using. We're still working out the integration, and we have buildings and some classrooms in some places that aren't being used.
Yeah, DeSoto is underutilized by a lot.
So we need
Because
to,
it's only 7th and 8th grade. If they maybe add 9th grade in there, you can fill the rooms. And
we just need to finish the transitions and.
Ideally, yeah, they're a little different. They operate differently than Montgomery does as far as more integration at Montgomery and not so much at Santa Rosa.
Well, I'm hearing good stories. I mean, I heard from one of the math teachers that they're actually doing differentiation for a 7th grader and in a high school class. So it seems like we're moving in the direction.
I think it's natural that evolves as you
Right.
get through the first year, right? There was a quick transition, as we all know.
For the middle school PE?
Yeah.
Or for the, I know when I went to go visit the high school, the girls had to walk all the way across to the campus.
Yes,
on the other
That's
side.
blue job, that's that
Yeah.
blue
No,
ad for
that-
the gym is to, yeah, create a women's locker room on the main gym. As well as a wrestling room and or PE space, flexible space
Okay.
on top of that, yeah.
And then,
exactly.
that's good. And then the middle school, play and outdoor area,
Yep. Right here.
wasn't that a parking lot?
So it's currently like,
Basketball court,
yeah,
yeah,
basketball court.
That everyone parks on.
Right.
they shouldn't, yeah. There's
Done-
oil slicks on the
I've
basketball
never,
court, yeah.
never done that, Eric.
Good.
I definitely don't do that.
I have.
Uh-huh.
And then. Is that the softball field? Is that where the girls?
Yeah,
In the middle there.
this is the softball field in the middle of the campus currently that was referred to earlier. Yeah,
At
and
one
we,
point when they did it, it was probably the back of the campus, but
Right.
they actually kind of moved it around,
yeah.
moved around it.
And if we needed to add another big classroom building here, it might make sense to put it there and move things around, but we really don't.
We don't really need the classroom building, yeah, it's the reason. It's not
And,
there.
yeah, and there's actually a lot of land on this site, it's just kind of spread out. In a somewhat, because it wasn't like planned to be a 2,000 student high school when they started building the first building, right? So it's a little bit inefficient, but I think getting to the athletics part of it, we had a lot of conversations about that in the site committee meetings. We had great site committee meetings here. Dr. Clissow put the invitation out to the entire Parent Square community, so I think the first one we had like 35 people. But I think it went pretty well.
Out of 2,000.
What was that?
I said out of 2,000.
Yeah.
I think it's
No,
more than
I
we
mean-
had the first
No,
year
yeah.
that when we went there.
Oh, it's
Yeah.
twice as much as we had at any other school site.
Well,
Yeah.
probably 30 of those parents were baseball parents wanting to know about a second field.
Like a few.
There's a couple.
Oh.
Yeah.
So where would we?
And the PE team and the PE athletic teams is well represented as well. So this site has the one
baseball?
oversized baseball field really, and we talked about the opportunity of maybe rotating it to create some extra room, but we didn't really need the extra room. So we didn't show it rotated. And because essentially it's essentially a square on this site and this part especially is much
So one thought on
larger.
or two thoughts on rotating it. One is getting the batting cages back and the bullpens back to more closer to where they are currently, because having them over there, that's not.
Yeah, we don't,
easily accessible.
with where we ended up with this, we can probably just keep them where they're at. We don't need to move them.
Yeah, and so I definitely look at putting them back to where they're currently at. And then the advantage of the rotation with the plans for the new building in the middle school play area for that, what is currently not a parking lot, but is the parking lot, is those actually not being available as a parking lot are gonna make it hard for access to the fan areas. So the other advantage of a rotation would be to create access to the fan areas from legitimate parking. Cause right now,
Sure.
especially for, as we just, I got a lot of comments about the current fencing for the construction there and it impacting people with going to watch their grandkids. And so there's an access issue for the grandparents, especially when they watch their kids.
If we were to get creative and find a place for another baseball field, where would we put it? Because all the.
Kind of showing it out there behind the tennis courts, it's hard to, it's cut off
Yeah.
on this drawing, but the large field, there's a large field there that's used for discus and shot put. It's throwing, it's really nice, but it's large, it could house multiple things.
Okay.
So what we showed here to kind of address the fact that there are only one baseball and one softball field here is taking that field and redeveloping it as an artificial turf field that could be multi-use field, so it could be used for throwing, but it can also be used for baseball or softball practice. It can also be used for soccer and and football practice and things like that too.
Is there enough space there for it to be a JV regulation field? That's the thing we're really missing is a regulation.
It's very large, yeah.
Yeah.
It could easily fit a varsity field on that thing, depending how you situate it, but yeah.
I think that's the big need is a second regulation.
The other thing I would just say too is like, as our planning with this evolved, the enrollment projections were kind of lower than we were originally thinking, so I think the there's very unlikely to be a need for that future classroom building.
It's a future class, that's why it's in white, it's a future middle school class, because only if enrollment grew, right? You don't actually need that built like.
And there's a pretty good cushion
Right
before
now.
we even get.
And I do want to get to that projections conversation, because this is the one campus where last year we didn't actually fulfill every wait list request. And it has wait lists now, so I think it's time, if we're ready, if everyone else.
This
is ready.
is the last page that I have, so yeah.
Maybe we can ask Emmanuel to come up and talk about, because when I hear that the projections aren't there, but we're turning students away from the campus, from the wait lists, I think it'd be good to understand
That
that.
I don't know.
And then we also have the question around Elsie's projections.
So in the last FMP, there was also the district office page. Is that gonna be added in FMP or? did
Oh,
that
yeah.
get included?
The district office page,
Yeah, those a
Plan.
whole section on the facility. project plan, but the district-
yeah, it'll be added in the master plan, where there's no update to it, there's no.
No, I just wanna know that it'll still.
Yeah, I mean, it would be added, but it will show as in
No need,
process
yeah.
and already funded, so
Yeah.
there won't be any projects there.
Yeah.
Cause those needs have been met by the project that's currently underway.
And
So that's kind of what but if we wanna kind of show that instead of not showing that, we can. Do we have any other questions on the plans themselves or is this like a manual over
We
here?
can come back.
Uh,
So what was that?
Any other questions for this, or do you want to turn to the capacity and enrollment?
We got a half an hour, so why don't we turn to the capacity and enrollment, and let's recognize this is the study session, because we're gonna have things come back, and you're not getting all the answers. But I would like to hear about them.
Before you go too far though.
I'm not going anywhere, don't.
Oh.
We just gotta make room for Emmanuel, but I
Just
just.
to add a comment from carryover from the elementary side,
This chair.
carryover from G. Now that we've moved to C, same situation, it was talked about at some of the sites, but like. Not. Building, maintaining, doing all the things, if the space is not being used and it's. Projected use to capacity, like I just don't wanna pay for things. That don't need to be paid for. You know? I'm sure you don't either.
No, I told you before, my battle with principals goes way back, space use, yeah.
Send them to us. Say we don't.
I love the
need
principals.
money.
We're just continuing our work together.
It's just tricky though, when you have space, of course you're gonna move into it,
Yeah.
right? Like, that's just. What you do.
Yes.
And so trying to put in, I don't know how we do this, but trying to put in some, like, just some best practices. Don't use the space, please. We don't have the money. Turn off the lights. Turn off the heaters.
well, thankfully the lights are on auto shut offs.
Beautiful. And those, now that we have those new keys, those doors are locked. Nobody
Yes,
gets
well,
in.
As long as the principal doesn't give them access to it, yes, I
think,
think.
I think to emphasize that that's also like incorporating our strategic priorities into this plan, like we should have a clear fiduciary. We're not
Yes.
just gonna keep spaces because there's extra space on this campus, we're actually gonna. Not use them, if they're at end of life, we're not gonna just keep them going unless there's actually. The student population to justify it, it needs to be a student-centered plan.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
that necessitates
That means
focusing the resources in a way where we're serving the students.
And not to make smaller class sizes either. Because that is ideal, if everyone can have small class sizes, great, but if everybody can't have small class sizes. We don't just take up the space to use to make a small class size, because it's gonna be more expensive to maintain that.
So would it be optimal to plan for being able to provide lower those student use ratios? I mean, hopeful.
So when we're looking at that right now, what we would use as our class sizes are not always what we would plan for always in the future. When we're talking about the capacity, we're talking about what we normally would be planning for. So you're 1 through 3 at the 24 rather than the 32. Less than that.
Yeah.
So this didn't change, this plan didn't change class sizes based on our budget cuts, we're still anticipating the lower class sizes.
Our normal
Our normal class.
loading.
We were just.
So that's
having
our
the same
update to
answer.
normal loading is baked in.
Right, I wanna make sure we get time for projections conversation, so trustee Medina, or sorry, trustee Kirby.
Sorry, I said one
Yeah.
quick thing, just where you started off, the thing with the surveys that are going out.
Yes.
Fair Square.
Yes.
I just wanna make sure we have some way maybe to capture some of the, we're gonna reach out to the feeder districts. That
Yeah.
are gonna come in. Is there a way to capture them in some survey of some? way?
Yeah,
I know
I
it's
mean,
difficult to
We
get
don't
the
have-
word out to them, but.
Well, that's it. We can share information with their superintendents and ask them to send it out. We don't have access to their parents.
Right, exactly.
We set them up as Google polls, so you guys can share them, and we're working with Patrick on that.
Okay.
And so you guys can share them however you want.
Yeah,
We're setting them up
I can share
to
that with
Patrick
the
Thanks,
Okay.
you share.
Thanks.
Be ready to move on to our next exercise, but I don't know if you want to extend. I don't know how much time you want to spend on it. We're already at 5 after 8.
So extend, I do wanna make sure we answer the projection questions really quickly.
Okay.
And then we'll use what time we have on the last exercise.
Yeah, so that's the stuff I'm bringing to you, the last exercise.
Yeah, so I think, for me, I'm just like really interested in figuring out like. Maybe just seeing that data, so that data is coming from specifically, how it's being calculated for campus, for site. You know, obviously current is obvious, but like the future projections.
So I can share Emmanuel's link as a
Yeah.
view only in the
Yeah, of course.
board weekly. We'll send that out to you.
And I can explain more or less where that came from because there is a lot going on in that spreadsheet. So the current projection, enrollment projections are based on our two demographic studies that we have access right now. One was the original demographic study that was done by King's Consulting in 2023. That was the original one that, the 2023 master plan was based on. Then, just this fall, we have received another demographic study by, MGM. So we have these two studies together. And there is a two-step process to combine them. Because the 2023 study, like right now, we're already in the third year of projections. So, the more we go out from the original year, the more the projections are a little bit fuzzier. The MGT, I think, is more current, so it's a little bit better. So what I did, I use, a cohort progression calculation, basically looking at what did the demographic studies project as changes year to year in enrollment, right? So let's say that, from this year to next year, they are projecting decline in enrollment of 2%, right? So I took all of those, and you will see that in the spreadsheet. There is a change in enrollment grade by grade and year by year, right? And so I took the 2025, 2026 enrollment at census day. This year was October 1st, and then used those ratios to push forward the enrollment projections for 10 years. To 2030, we have results from both studies. So both the Kings and the MGT are contributing to the 2030 projections. The 2035 projections are only based on the MGT study because the King's Consulting study stopped in 2030. So, I didn't make it up. So that is to project the district-wide enrollment by grade, right? And so that is step number one, is how many students do we have enrolled? And I don't know if you have access to this page, but basically, that will give you an overall enrollment. This year, we have about 9,000 students enrolled in secondary schools, for example, since most of the questions were around secondary schools. For 2030, we are projecting about 7,000, right? And so about a 1,800 student drop, which you can think about is roughly a 20%-ish drop in enrollment in the next 5 years.
Instead of a drop happens in the next 2 years.
Yeah.
Right now, yeah. And then starting from 2030, there is a little plateau and potentially a pickup back, right? And so that you can see now, you can see this already happening in our feeder districts. They are experiencing a steep decline in enrollment. The students will get older,
age and move into our secondary science. Right, so they are, 3, 4, 5 years ahead of us. Where they are, that right now will be there in 2030, right? And so think about that when you think about it. So this is for the overall district level projections, right? Now, the other thing is how do we project school-based enrollment, right? And so, your guess is gonna be as good as mine. The way that I chose to guess here was to assume that the distribution of students between our school sites will stay constant, right? So if you look at what percentage of students attend each one of our schools right now, the same percentage will apply to 2020 or to 2030 and 2035. So let's pretend that school A at 20% of our students, and they get 20% of 8,000 students. In 5 years from now, they will still get 20% of the, 6,000 students or, 7,000 students that we have. I don't know if that assumption will hold, right?
That doesn't make sense given what I saw, my computer's dead, but.
Yeah.
But just using that example, there was like some schools that kind of remain almost the same feature, right? But there's like, again, I brought up the example of LC where it's kind of almost the same, but there's 7th and 8th being added to it, right?
Yeah.
So that's why for that didn't necessarily make sense if that's the way you're doing it. And the other part is in that going from 9,000 to 7,000. To what point is it accounting for new construction and housing that's being built?
Yeah, so usually the original demographic studies bake that all into it, right? Beside the new construction, they are still projecting a steep decline in enrollment, right? And so all that new construction addition, all was baked into the original demographic studies, and there are tables there we can go over, like with when the new construction will come online and so on.
Yeah, because the new construction is taking this decline and making it like that. Because there's no babies being born.
So
right?
the other question, as you look at, because it sounds like you're just kind of like breaking down the existing ratios, but at what point do you look at where construction is happening and adjust ratios based off of that?
And we can, right? And that, that one, I don't know how we want to do it. It's really just moving students around at that point, right? And so if we feel like as a group, we are going to have, 200 students more at RCL and 300 students more there, right? Which means that those students will need to come from the other 4 sites, right? And so I think the overall district projections are pretty close to where we are going to see. The school level projections, right, will be based on that, also based on student migration, right? Something that we have observed, even through this steep declining in enrollment, there are some schools that seem to be not affected. And most is our charters, right? If you look at our charter enrollment, it's always been 1,800, right? Since I want to say, if you go back to 2016, we had a big jump when I think we added the middle school to the CCLA, the Oak Cook campus, right? In 2020, we had a big jump, right, in our charter enrollment. But schools that have like a wait list usually are able to navigate changes in enrollment a little bit better than other schools, right? So
I don't want to keep going now.
yeah, anyways, but that's more or less where these numbers come from.
If you can distribute the details, we gotta do it more when we get to the item that's coming up. And I do think it's gonna be important for us to understand how to account for our intra-district desire and design to retain students, and permit that choice to go to specialized programs and those types of things. So but I think we need to all have the data to be ready for that conversation.
Yeah, and that'll come out that'll be attached to the board weekly.
This weekend?
But yeah, I think
Reading
there'll be more conversation there, because I definitely want to hear more about this declining enrollment in places where we don't let everyone in.
Okay. Implementation plan. We talked about this before. This is what, when this kind of gets finalized, this is what's coming your way in the future years on consent. what we have here is a little bit of an exercise that we're probably gonna run out of time with, but, you can see in what we show, the site priorities that we heard from the different sites as we went through these, committee meetings, and we've given estimated cost for them, and we can kind of, the goal here is what we do, is try to figure out what can we do with the bond funds that we still haven't sold, right, that we need to sell it and that are remaining. So the exercise that we were hoping to get from you all is kind of looking at those priorities, knowing the priorities you hear along the way in your work. What would you like to see? We've created a column for you with a nice little adder. You see, we're already $52 million over in our overall between both bonds, but so obviously we can't do them all unless we start getting that state funding rolling back in, which we're hoping to do, and that helps offset that, right, to get all that work done. But we wanted to hear from you on some of your priorities, so we can start to plug in some ideas in there and start for you guys to shape to see what trades might have to be made depending on choices that are made. So,
But can I just clarify though, so the minus 52 million, that means that there's no money for any of these?
No,
no, it means if you added up all the
Oh,
total,
right, okay.
you're over.
so I think one thing for this, do we, instead of it saying, is there a way to just adjust the language at the top around the funds to recognize that we do get state matching funds, and having the bonds helps us be shovel ready to apply for those funds? So it's more of thinking of it as the amount of money we need to go find.
This is for an exercise. This will not be in the,
Okay,
this
good.
is not the actual implementation, but this is
I mean,
for an
there's
exercise.
lots of other ways that we could get some.
Yeah,
That
exactly.
being said, there's also other facilities funds, there's developer fees, and there's Fund 40.
Sale of
The
properties.
Which
sale.
can be funded by the sale of property. So we usually try to combine all of those factors, including state matching funds, when we're looking at the overall bond implementation, but this is just our bond dollars for right now.
Yeah, if you look back at the 2023 implementation bond that we approved, it has all the other funds like Fund 40, 25, and 30.
You will see that in the
Yeah.
final plan.
Yeah. So let me say, instead of us going through and picking between each of our children, as for campuses, and noting the time, what I suggest is, I mean, we've received a lot of feedback already that may even refine some of these numbers, I'd anticipate. Especially around modulars and costs for some of the things. So perhaps we could go around and have the board give general and specific feedback.
Sure.
For you to then be able to take and help mold into what comes back to us.
Yeah, that'd be great if you, I
So
mean, we could
have
start
it
on
cover- Yeah.
measure, we could start on measure G or C, depending on where you wanna like look at or school specific, if you guys wanna just let us know.
I think I'll leave it up to each trustee as to
Yeah.
how they wanna provide the
Yeah.
feedback, and then I know that we have
Hear it.
someone on there taking notes with
Yeah.
a big computer, so.
Yeah.
I still like to go first.
Sure, well, just a clarification, like all access restrooms are left blank, and why is?
So yeah, those are an added cost, right? That number was not 52 million, it was a lot higher than that. And so I start like pulling out like where, just again, I'm not deciding what to do. I'm just trying to throw that's why it's still listed there. It just doesn't have a number assigned to it yet.
Right. And I know I asked this question, about the modernization of each campus. I know some campuses are 70 years old and they may have had a modernization, I don't know, 10 years ago. And then some campuses are 30 years old and have never had a modernization. So just, I don't know if you can send it to us or something, just say like, hey, when were the last modernizations done on?
The major bonds were last done in the two bonds ago, the 02 to 05 range. As well as some have been redone over with deferred maintenance, like, the carpet's not original at LC Allen, it's been upgraded along the way at some point, but it wasn't a bond project, right? So I don't have the data on that. It wasn't a part of a modernization.
Gotcha.
So, but most of our campuses are long overdue for a modernization, almost all of them, all the classrooms. I mean, you could pick a few that don't need it quite so much, but the bulk of them do. They're at the 20-year mark.
It like a lot of, it all seems necessary, right? I see the need for like fencing the elementaries seems like a very high priority. Turf fields at secondary, if we're seeing a lot of concussions and big injuries because of those. That seems like
You're
a,
gonna see that on Wednesday.
okay.
Of the injuries, but the.
See a new field replacement due to a have to, not a.
Yeah.
Not a, oh, we want to.
Roofing is another one, like if the roofs are leaking, we kind of, like you need the roof to have anything else.
Yeah, we're on the
Um,
last few roofs, luckily. I think just LC and which is already on contract and Perio and Hidden Valley are kind of where we're still needing help there.
And then I see it's grayed out, but those all access restrooms, we've been talking about it for ever. And then, of course, the things that are impacting the current 7 to 12s that caused it necessary for us to utilize other campuses. Seems like that would be a big priority, just so that we can do something with the other campus, so we can, you know. I guess that's only Slater because Santa Rosa is being used by, will be used by French. But figuring that piece out, it should be a priority so that we could do something with the other campus. That's where I
You're
stand.
emphasizing the new main gym component of the Montgomery. And I
Yes.
second that. Yeah,
Yes,
That's-
and then
yeah.
those other like super safety needs.
Trustee Medina?
Well, could be, I'm not sure if it falls within something already here, like classroom modernization, or I know that at LC, they've been talking about the theater for years.
Yep.
Or Performing Arts Center, but I don't see it on here.
It's part of the modernization, right? That would be
Okay.
campus-wide modernization.
And, that access control seems so expensive.
Yes, yeah, but it also attacks my deferred maintenance problems on all my doors, right? So I get double the bang for my buck. I know it's not cheap, but it's secure. The amount of key loss we have is frightening.
Tens of thousands of dollars a year.
Every year, my budget gets filled by keys and doors.
And my
So,
question is,
and-
have all the other schools already had that done? I don't see it
Access
anywhere
control.
else.
Yeah, those are already part of phase 1 and 2. This is phase 3. We phased it, during the consolidation time, if I remember right. I had to go back in time, right? So we phased it out over 3 phases. So phase 3 will come your way eventually here, so.
So it's just Hidden Valley and LC that still need that, looks like.
I mean, our parents taught, safety and security is one of their number one things.
It was
So-
the number one
so
thing in the site meeting.
The access
still.
control and the fencing.
Yeah.
You
Well,
know,
they're tied to
two of
that
the-
with-
two of the high priority things for safety.
Yeah, tied to that with, where the offices are having where you have trouble accessing the office from the front, right? I mean, like Hidden Valley is a perfect example of, I can't fence Hidden Valley until we move the office, like it can't do it. There's no way to do that. So some go together in that sense.
And going back to the turf field, so like
Mhm.
every campus needs the turf
All
field.
5, yep.
No problem, no question.
Plant some seeds.
Feedback? Very simple.
No, I mean, I see these are high. I guess my question would be like, what projects can be grouped together, can be done all at once, like in the summer? I know that the complaint that I hear about building the 2-story building or building construction on a site, it's just how disruptive it is to the kids' learning. With their own building shaking and,
It is, there is only so much we can do over 2 months, buildings take a little longer. Classroom modernizations are tough too, right? Because you have to interrupt classrooms to
Yeah.
do that, so.
we don't have.
And we don't have the capacity to do that, so we have to. So those are a lot of summer that's gonna drag on for some period of time, which can only do so much in a summer, so.
And I
Yeah.
mean, we're not great and we don't have round the clock construction happening.
Right.
It'd be nice to be a sovereign nation. No building codes, no. Any other feedback, Director Van Line?
I mean, obviously, there's some stuff on here, I mean, I guess if I had to deprioritize some things, it would probably be the shade structures. Play structures, some of,
Just so important.
I know they are, but I mean.
Some of them are safety issues.
I'm telling you, some of the modernization stuff, I tell you, I really wanna get started on that, cause some of these.
Me too,
I'm telling you,
that's
some of
by far
them-
my.
I know we're gonna have to, like you just said, we're gonna have to space them out, we can't do them all at once, but
Yeah.
we need to.
I will expect
Gotta get
that if
that roll.
you're okay, I will be starting to roll those to you this year to
As soon
start
as
some
we
this summer. Yeah,
Yeah.
we've been talking already and we've been trying to put that together.
Is there, I mean, I don't necessarily see here, but in terms of like new stuff. Wasn't there like CTE facilities building grants that we could qualify that could maybe expedite some of those?
We'll get an update on the matching funds and things that the different funding sources. I know that Debbie Cardozo is really good about identifying when there's opportunities for us to apply for things.
I think this is part of the language on this sheet, and however this comes back when we're talking about it is. Bonds are one component of what we're looking for, but I think it's really important for us to have a clear 10, 15-year vision that's not constrained by them, because we want to be shovel-ish ready, I guess, application ready for funding when it comes available. And so committing to our priorities above and beyond what's in the bonds, I think is really important to then be able to go after the state bonds when they are approved and out there, to go after, to be able to use any proceeds should we do disposition during the 7-Eleven process, should there be grants. So I don't want to constrain our prioritization just to the bond funds. Plus, you're also good at getting matching funds. You know, I know that we're not dollar for dollar on. And that's kind of where I'm gonna start my prioritization. I similar to the safety concept, you know, thinking of going through our strategic priorities on a fiduciary level, prioritizing the things that are going to get us, you know, that are gonna remove an expense from our deferred maintenance. You got 20 million in deferred maintenance down here, right? So if doing all access control is going to make, you know, or whatever it is, modernization reduces deferred maintenance costs. You know, I would prioritize first where you're gonna get that double benefit. In order to make sure that we're not continuing to burn money that we wouldn't need to if we did a project earlier. It's almost like public works with roads, right? We can repair it.
Yeah.
You know, and then, you know, looking at the other prioritizations, I'd go through and be really rigorous on the modernization, roofing, and those types of elements in here against the capacity numbers, and make sure that what we're modernizing and what we're doing we actually need. And we're removing modules, removing things before we commit funds to maintaining them. And, you know, a part of the next couple of weeks of getting really clear on our projections and what we're anticipating. But I anticipate that there's probably some savings from reducing the scope of those to only be what we actually need. Yeah. Within that, I agree with prioritizing the, you know, kind of enrichment athletic components, especially for the 7-12 campuses, and, you know, Montgomery and Santa Rosa kind of had to deal with it without getting new buildings built at the same time. Like, so to the extent that we're able to prioritize those, they appear to be prioritized already in here. So
yeah,
you know,
they're on there.
And then I think just one note on Proctor, I think a lot of the work that's gonna need to happen on Proctor is gonna need to be identified in the future. But I think clearly identifying the phasing of those buildings and, you know, similar to these, to some of the other Measure G campuses, like if the admin building was identified in this phase 3 at 5 million, it's not disproportionate to what's happening. And then that can start the process, because there's no way all the work on that campus site is gonna happen in one big bonanza. And if we don't start moving on some of those improvements, I think, you know, it's gonna be important to have some of that sooner, and then make sure that we're then targeting that for the new funds that we identify, as we're identifying the funds for that. And, you know, I know there's work at the state level around kind of dealing with the impacts around the earthquake zones for not just schools, but also hospitals and judicial buildings. So being ready to apply for those grants and funds as the state makes them available, because this property will be eligible for them, I think is gonna be.
Yeah, we've partnered with good people that help us identify those things.
Yeah, no, and I know, I mean, they're talking about it because it's also a problem with courthouses. It's also a problem with hospitals. So making sure that we have things moving here so that as we can apply for those funds, we're ready to apply for them when they pop up. Yeah.
And then I'd also say a serious look at operational cost considerations as well. So not just double or bang for the buck on deferred maintenance, but if there's any changes that if we do them now would reduce operational costs, burden on our maintenance staff. Make things more efficient for our classified employees, one thing in the IT department, elements like that, anything where we can make our people resources more efficient through facility changes would also be my prioritization.
Okay. The question that I was gonna ask was, as it relates to priority, is that related to how quickly you go through the process of beginning to get like DSA approval for things? And what was the amount of time that DSA approval lasts? I know we ran into that issue with the Montgomery building. Like, how long does it last once you get approved before you?
4 years.
4 years.
4 years, yeah. You have to build by then.
And do we have, I think it'd be cool to see a list of what we have kind of planned already that's already been DSA approved, that's in process. Sure, we can get that.
And I'm gonna ask other questions to go in through, but if there's a comment on, there's an interesting.
Just the CNS steam kettle project, I know we talked about it. Any way we can reach out to the famous chef with spiky white hair that has a foundation in our town, and still if he would like to donate to that, that'd be awesome.
Priority for CNS for sure.
Yeah.
That's why it's on there.
That's a good idea. So, we are at 8:30. I'm gonna finish this on time. So any other questions that we want, sent in, this is, Niall's gonna come back to us. So, we are, I'm sure I don't have anything else on my, we are adjourned at 8:30.
President, stop,
That was my. I was